Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. I'm the Montgomery County Council President, and today we have the great honor of celebrating Jewish American Heritage Month. And and we kicked off the day with an awesome breakfast downstairs provided by Shalom Kosher, which is a company in my district in Kenmil, so I had to give them a shout out. Of course I do. And so I'm gonna ask everybody who came for that proclamation to please come forward and come here, and I'm gonna ask all council members to also join me down there. Meet you on the other side. Can you go closer?
She used it every single time. Use it all the time.
Come on, Mayor, don't hide in the back.
See, it's a big party in a big house, ready to celebrate. Again, my name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, and we're here celebrating Jewish American Heritage Month. I am so proud to be in a council and in a county that embraces our diversity and our beautiful heritage and our beautiful culture. And I just seen the diversity of people who come from all parts of Montgomery County and different elected officials from state level, the local level, the school board. Being here really represents the love that we all have for this county and how we're building a caring economy where we take everybody's values and perspectives into account to continue working together. I'm gonna ask my Jewish friends, elected officials, to please join us, and I'm looking at you, Snickats, to please share some remarks before we have our two special speakers to come forward. So I'm gonna start with Councilmember Sidney Katz.
See, she's starting with age rather than anything else, is what that amounts to. First off, thank you all for what you do and for being with us today. It's really an honor to present a proclamation recognizing Jewish American Heritage Month in Montgomery County. Our county has a Jewish population of about 10%. This is in comparison to less than 2% of all Americans who are Jewish. And just as an aside, growing up, my family was the only Jewish family in Gaithersburg. And I used to always say that was a good deal for me because that made me the best looking Jewish guy at Gaithersburg High School. We have a vibrant Jewish community center, the Bender JCC of Greater Washington in Rockville, which is open to people of all backgrounds and religions. Jewish Americans enrich every part of our daily lives as public officials, business leaders, scientists, educators, artists, entertainers, and entrepreneurs. We present this proclamation at a time when anti-Semitism continues to rise, with houses of worship needing security to ensure safety for their congregants. The county has $1.2 million in security grants for nonprofits and faith-based organizations aimed at protecting them from vandalism, threats, and violence. Acts of anti-Semitism, often disguised as anti-Zionism or Holocaust denialism, have no place in Montgomery County, and neither does any type of hate, and we will do everything in our power to ensure the safety and security of all Jewish Americans. We all want to continue with my deep appreciation and gratitude for our vibrant Jewish community. I thank you, and I guess you were next. All right, the youngest, right here. Are you younger?
The youngest, but I gotta say, I definitely was not the best-looking Jewish guy at Churchill High School, but Sidney Katz, I think, is the best-looking Jewish council member on the Montgomery County Council to this day. So, you've aged like a fine wine, my friend. It is really a privilege and an honor to be able to commemorate Jewish American Heritage Month at the Montgomery County Council. Proud that we have been able to do this for the last several years, every year, actually, of this council term. Councilmember Glass and I, when we were in leadership, started this and have continued it, and I'm really proud and thankful to the council president for continuing this, as well as all colleagues. We, for many years in Montgomery County, have been commemorating the Holocaust and have been ensuring that the stories of Jewish victimhood are told. And it's important at a time when anti-Semitism is rising at alarming rates that we never forget the results of what anti-Semitism can lead to and where things can head. But if we really want to combat hate, if we really want to push back against anti-Semitism, we can't define the Jewish experience exclusively by those who hate us, those who attack us, those who have tried to eliminate us. We have to fight hate and anti-Semitism by celebrating what it means to be Jewish and the vibrant culture and the contributions that we have made to this country, this county and community, and to the world. And I am extremely proud that that's exactly what we're doing today. The Jewish community has led in so many different areas, from law and science and academia to social action and social justice, being on the front lines of every single progressive movement to move our country forward, to complete the unfinished work of our founding principles. And we continue to lead in so many different ways at the state level. In fact, when you think of Old Bay invented by a Jewish guy. So there is nothing more Maryland than Old Bay, and there was a Jewish guy who was behind that. And so it's just really a pleasure and a privilege to be here with so many amazing community leaders that really reflect and represent the vibrancy of the Jewish community in Montgomery County, the rich history that we have here in Montgomery County. And it's great to celebrate what it means to be Jewish. I think it's the single most important thing that we can do to fight back against anti-Semitism, to stand up and be counted, and to ensure that we are celebrating all the contributions and the people who live their Jewish values in our community out loud. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Friedson. We are here to celebrate Jewish American Heritage Month and recognize and celebrate the beautiful diversity that exists here in Montgomery County, the most diverse place in the country, the most religiously diverse place in America. And sometimes those diversities cause strain. Sometimes the difference of opinion causes dissent. But we are here today because we need to stand up with one voice and let everybody know that we are all welcome in Montgomery County. We will not allow the hate emanating from Pennsylvania Avenue affect us up here on Rockville Pike. We will not let international disagreement make our neighbors disagree with each other. We have to stand up for all of our neighbors. And as we celebrate Jewish American Heritage Month, we have to recommit ourselves to calling out anti-Semitism whenever and wherever we see it. And we know that in the Jewish movement, we have locked arms with so many other communities throughout American history, standing up for not only our civil rights, but their civil rights as well. That is what is beautiful about the Jewish American heritage here. It is that we stand up and look out for our community, and we look out for other communities as well. It is a beautiful tradition. It is one that we need to continue. And most importantly, we all as a community need to speak out when we see hate wherever and whenever it occurs. And with that, I'll turn it back to Council President Fanny Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so proud to serve on this council with these three amazing human beings. So thank you for your presence and for speaking out. Next, we're going to have Rabbi Abby Charosky, JCRC Director of Intergroup Relations and Rabbi in Residence. Should I put it here? You want me? I'll hold it. You hold it?
Yes. Thank you so much. So this week's Torah reading from the 5 books of Moses, every Shabbat, every Saturday morning, Jews around the world read from the Torah scroll. And this week's portion that they're reading is entitled Behar Bechukotai, and it has a rather famous verse in it from Leviticus 25:10. You shall proclaim liberty throughout the land for all its inhabitants. I'll say it again. You shall proclaim liberty throughout the land for all its inhabitants. Now, this comes in a longer set of instructions about what Jews do during the 50th year, or all people should do during the 50th year, during the Jubilee cycle, and what it means to let things rest, to let things be for a bit. And it's also found on the Liberty Bell, placed there in 1751 by the Speaker of Pennsylvania Assembly to commemorate the freedom afforded to the citizens of Pennsylvania, including the right to choose their religion. I'm a proud Philadelphian. Sorry, Montgomery County. I grew up in Philadelphia, and the Liberty Bell and the surrounding landmarks were frequent field trips. And I didn't think much about the time about that line on the bell or what it meant to proclaim liberty for all inhabitants, but I should have. I am the 3rd generation of my family on both sides to be born in the United States. My great-grandparents immigrated here from parts of Russia that were sometimes Ukraine, other times Poland, but never friendly toward Jews. One ancestor fled because he was being drafted into the Tsar's army. Another fled after pogroms destroyed their village. They left behind siblings and cousins and parents and came to America towards the end of the 18th century, and for the first time, they could be citizens of a country. Jewish American Heritage Month doesn't only celebrate the contributions of Jewish people to this country, it celebrates the ability, the freedom of Jews to be Americans, to be recognized as citizens of a country. Today also marks Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, the period of time between Passover and Shavuot, a holiday that's taking place in just a few short weeks. And during this time, it's a somber time. It's a time when we remember things that have happened, and we mark an illness, a plague that was hitting many, many students during the rabbinic era. And it said that on Lag BaOmer, the plague stopped and mourning stopped. It was a pivotal moment. It was a turning point in that cycle. And I'd like to look at Jewish American Heritage Month as a turning point for us. And I heard the remarks of our council members, and I hear all the time that we need to combat anti-Semitism and stand with Jews about anti-Semitism. Well, let's stand with Jews to celebrate. Let's celebrate together. And let's make Jewish American Heritage Month about celebrating who we are as Americans, not as victims, not as survivors, but as people who love this country, who struggle with this country, and are here to stay.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to have Daniela Nemen, junior of Wheaton High School and participant of JCRC's student-to-student program. I'm so happy you're here.
Hello, my name is Daniela Naaman, and I'm a Thomas S. Wooten High School junior. This year, I've participated in the JCRC's Student-to-Student program, an incredible program where high school students get to present about Judaism and their experiences to local schools. I've also advocated with the JCRC and AJC on a number of occasions on the federal, state, and local levels for policies affecting Jewish youth. And I'm immensely grateful to be here today honoring the remarkable community I'm a part of. Being Jewish is an integral part of who I am, and my Jewish values and morals truly guide me every day, inspiring me to treat others with respect and work towards tikkun olam, the idea that every person has a responsibility to change the world in their own small way. Just like my Yemenite ancestors, who could read books from every possible angle, which was a practice meant to maximize their learning in surroundings with limited resources and space, I strive also to learn as much as possible and to take advantage of every opportunity to look at things from different angles. It is these two core tenets of Judaism, our strong sense of ethics and emphasis on learning, that have helped Jews to thrive and contribute despite the odds in America. With that said, though, I admit that I was a little nervous about coming to speak here today, given the fact that I would be outing myself essentially as Jewish. The unfortunate reality is that I am often apprehensive about sharing that I'm Jewish and Israeli amongst my peers, never knowing how they'll react. I've heard anti-Semitic jokes, seen swastikas drawn, and heard about my friends' experiences with anti-Semitism. And I know this problem is largely because of the fact that there is so little knowledge surrounding our experiences, contributions, and identity. For this reason, I commend you all for celebrating Jewish American Heritage Month this morning, as honoring our history, culture, and heritage is imperative in order to create a more welcoming and safe future. Thank you.
That was amazing. You did a great job. Very proud of you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start reading the proclamations. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to come forward. And then we keep that one there. So the Montgomery County Council of Maryland proclamation. Whereas Jewish American Heritage Month originated in 1918 when Congress passed a resolution which authorized the President of the United States to issue a proclamation designating April 21st to 28, 1980 as Jewish Heritage Week. And
whereas since 2007, every United States president has issued proclamations for Jewish American Heritage Month, encouraging all Americans to learn about Jewish heritage and the contributions of Jewish Americans to the United States. And
whereas the American Jewish community dates back to 1654, when a group of 23 Jews fleeing persecution at the hands of the Portuguese Inquisition in Brazil found refuge in New Amsterdam, now part of New York City. Today, the American Jewish community has grown to approximately 7.6 million people, which represents more than 2% of the total U.S. population. And
whereas the story of America was written in part by Jewish Americans who, through their words and actions, embrace the opportunity and responsibility of citizenship and civic engagement, Jewish Americans continue to guide our country's progress as scientists and teachers, doctors and lawyers, public servants and nonprofit leaders, and
Whereas, over the past 370 years, Jewish Americans have contributed to their communities and to this nation as loyal and patriotic citizens. The American Jewish community has proudly served in uniform and elected office and on our nation's highest courts. And
whereas Jewish Americans have made enormous contributions to America's artistic, cultural, economic, philanthropic, intellectual, and scientific achievements, and have marched, petitioned, and boarded buses to demand civil and political rights for all. From women's rights to voting rights and workers' rights, American Jews have always pushed our nation to live up to its promises to uphold freedom and justice for all. And
I feel like we all have to pass the actual proclamation. Whereas Montgomery County is home to the largest Jewish population in the state, with 45% of Maryland's Jewish residents living in our community. According to the Berman Jewish Data Bank, Montgomery County's Jewish residents make up approximately 10% of our population, with 105,400 residents. Additionally, the Washington metropolitan area is home to the third largest Jewish population in the United States. And
Whereas for generations, the story of the Jewish people has been recognized as one of resilience, faith, and hope in the face of adversity, prejudice, and persecution. And
whereas now, American Jews are feeling increasingly vulnerable amid a continued rise in anti-Semitism. The American Jewish Committee's State of Anti-Semitism in America 2025 report found that more than 9 in 10 American Jews feel less safe, with roughly 1/3 reporting they were personally targeted in the past year and over half changing their behavior out of fear. Sadly, we have seen a rise in anti-Semitism in Montgomery County as well. And whereas hate has no home in our community.
Hate has no home in our community. And we stand in solidarity with our Jewish residents to combat anti-Semitism, discrimination, and acts of violence. And we commit ourselves to doing everything we can to help eliminate all types of discrimination and prejudice. And
whereas in Montgomery County, our diversity is our strength, and Jewish American Heritage Month is a time when the culture and history of Jewish Americans is celebrated, and their sacrifice and contributions for our nation, state, and country are honored and uplifted.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby proclaims May 2026 as Jewish American Heritage Month, presented on the 5th day of May in the year of 2026 by the Montgomery County Council. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today for the proclamation. We must continue with our next proclamation. Beautiful day. Thank you, everyone. Next, we're going to have a proclamation recognizing Affordable Housing Month by Councilmember Andrew Friedson. So if you're here for that proclamation, please come forward.
Come on down. $1. Good morning. We have some of our amazing affordable housing partners here to celebrate Affordable Housing Month. I will say that with this council and our community, with the cost of housing where it is and the work that we are trying to do, every month is Affordable Housing Month, but we are commemorating and celebrating it now. I'm going to turn it over and have everybody introduce themselves quickly. Then we're going to have some remarks, and then we're going to read the proclamation. Let me start with you.
Rob Goldman, president of Montgomery Housing Partnership, celebrating 25 years last week.
John Mendez, executive director at Bethesda Cares.
Jeff D., president of Habitat for Humanity Metro Maryland.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Chelsea Andrews, president of our Housing Opportunities Commission. We are the Housing Authority, Housing Finance Agency, and public developer here in this county.
Hi, I'm Lloyd Priest. I'm the chair of the Housing Opportunities Commission.
Jonathan Miller, member of the Housing Opportunities Commission.
Hi, I'm Abe Schuckman, the CEO of Housing Unlimited.
I'm Lisa Gavoni. I'm the Housing Policy Supervisor for Montgomery Planning.
Good morning, Layla Finucane, president of Victory Housing.
Barbara Goldberg-Goldman, co-chair of the Affordable Housing Conference of Montgomery County.
Thank you to all of our amazing partners. When we talk about the progress that we've made in Montgomery County, all of the work that we have been doing, all of it has been in partnership, and nearly all of it has been in partnership with our local nonprofits who are really on the front lines of building the housing, providing the services, ensuring that our residents who are cost constrained, who are struggling with an affordability challenge and a housing crisis that we face, are actually doing the work to produce and preserve the housing that we need. The Housing Production Fund, the Nonprofit Preservation Fund, the Accelerate MoCo initiative, where we reduce the amount of time that it would take to build housing so that we can build more of it in a more cost-effective way. Our faith zoning text amendment, we were able to allow for our mission-based organizations to provide mixed income housing on their property. We are doing a lot, and yet there is a lot more work to do. And that's why we're here today, to celebrate everything that we've accomplished, but also recommit ourselves to the work that we have ahead of us, and really to confirm and reignite the partnership between county government and our local nonprofit partners who are really on the front lines of actually doing the work on behalf of our community to live our values out loud and to address the housing challenges that we face. With that, I am very proud to introduce our first speaker is Jeff D. from Habitat for Humanity, who has been a great partner and champion providing generational wealth building opportunities and home ownership opportunities in partnership with the county council and county government. With that, Jeff.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is a great day to celebrate affordable housing. And I want to start by acknowledging the wonderful partners here with me, talking about working with us in a variety of ways to make affordable housing a reality. I also want to recognize Councilmember Friedson for his leadership. For a lot of the things he was just mentioning is because of your leadership on that, and thank you very much for all you do. So Habitat for Humanity, if I can just expand on that for everybody, our mission is we believe that all of God's children deserve a decent place to live. That's what we're all about. That's what we try to do every day. And there are a couple of myths about Habitat. One is that, Jimmy Carter started our organization, which is not true. Great volunteer. The second myth about Habitat is that, and I think it also extends to affordable housing, is that people who need affordable housing are poor or are lazy, uneducated. Drives me nuts. The reason I say that is, well, it's not true. They are just looking for an opportunity. That's what we're talking about, providing opportunities. When we partner with HOC, we partner with Montgomery County Council, we partner with all these other entities here, we are working to provide opportunities. One of our homeowners, to that myth, one of our homeowners has a double master's. She was on her way in the school system. She was, on her track to have a leadership position, but life intervened. She was pregnant with twins. Unfortunately, she lost one of the children at birth. The other one was severely impacted, such to the point where she looked forward to a life where she was going to have to literally do everything for him. And when she applied to our program, she was living in a place where it's the only one she could afford, right? And she would have to bring her son up the stairs to take a bath and to use the bathroom. And whenever she was in the kitchen, she couldn't keep an eye on him. Now, this was right when COVID hit. So what we were able to do is we built a single-family universal design home with her. And the most important thing is that she can transfer that house to her son. So she no longer has to worry. As someone with a special needs child, I'm already thinking 30 years ahead. What's it going to be like for my children? She no longer has to worry about that because she knows, because of what we were able to do and what a lot of our partners were able to do, she has a place for her son to live in perpetuity, where he can have, it's a roll-in shower. He is able to have people come in and take care of him. That's what we're celebrating today, is the opportunity that we provide together to make it possible for other people to have a decent place to live. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you to all my partners, and go affordable housing.
Thank you, Jeff. And Habitat, we're now going to call up John Mendez from Bethesda Cares.
I'm not quite as polished as Andrew and Jeff, so I'll have to read my statement here. My name is John Mendez. I'm the Executive Director at Bethesda Cares. And I'm honored to be here today with so many affordable housing champions to my left and to my right. At Bethesda Cares, we operate a homeless response network of programs throughout Montgomery County that are focused on permanent housing solutions and helping people live in the community. This includes permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, eviction prevention, landlord engagement, a street outreach program, and a daily meal program. Our outreach program covers 4 of the council districts. We have about 1 outreach worker per council district that we have in contract that's assisted and supported by Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services, services to end and prevent homelessness. Our services in total impacted about 1,200 different individuals last year across Montgomery County. I truly appreciate the affordable housing developers and providers in Montgomery County who helped us achieve a record number of housing placements at Bethesda Cares in 2025. I think it was a phenomenal year for our organization to help so many people get off the streets and into permanent housing. I want to talk for a moment about democracy, though. Democracy and affordable housing and the connection there. I believe that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness begins with one simple concept: a place to call home. Quite often, we find people who feel excluded on the streets. They feel disconnected. When we help someone secure permanent, affordable housing, we're helping them reconnect with the community again. This isn't just about housing alone. It's about recognizing the needs of our residents. It's about belonging. It's about inclusion. And it's about a chance for a better life. We in this room must choose to bridge that gap for our homeless and our vulnerable residents. They feel excluded because democracy is not just an idea. Democracy is shaped by the decisions we make, decisions about our budgets, about our land use, about advancing inclusionary zoning, and the opportunity to invest in the people who are left behind. Here in Montgomery County, we've seen that leadership. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership to the council and everything that you've done. It's essential to a strong workforce and a healthy community to advance these causes. Because when someone moves into a home, everything changes for them. Health improves, stability returns, and every key unlocks a future. This progress is made possible by all the champions of affordable housing up here, advocates, affordable housing landlords, developers, service providers, and public officials. Together, we can ensure that everyone, especially those often left out and those most in need, have a real chance to feel connected, that they feel included, and that they are participants in this most important principle of our democracy: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now let's go deliver on that. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our nonprofit partners for helping us fulfill what Hubert Humphrey called the moral test of government. We can't do this alone with government alone. It really is through these partnerships where we do deliver on affordable housing. With that, we're going to read the proclamation. Whereas, during Affordable Housing Month, Montgomery County reaffirms its commitment to advancing equity, access, and opportunity in housing for all of our residents. And whereas, Montgomery County has long been a national leader in fair and affordable housing, exemplified by the moderately priced dwelling unit program, one of the nation's first and most enduring inclusionary zoning policies. And whereas, the Montgomery County Council continues to advance bold, forward-looking policies, including modernizing the MPDU program, expanding housing near transit and opportunity areas, and allowing a greater variety of housing types. And whereas, the Council has prioritized both the preservation and production of affordable housing through strategic investments, including the Nonprofit Preservation Fund to maintain long-term affordability, and the Housing Production Fund to accelerate new housing development by leveraging our borrowing capacity. And whereas, Montgomery County is committed to removing unnecessary regulatory barriers in order to make construction less expensive and to make housing more affordable. And whereas, Montgomery County strives to foster inclusive, equitable communities where every resident, regardless of race, income, age, ability, or background, has access to safe, stable, and affordable housing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Council hereby commemorates Affordable Housing Month, and be it further resolved that the Council recognizes the vital contributions of housing advocates, community-based organizations, public and private partners, and reaffirms its commitment to expanding housing opportunities and upholding the principles of fairness, dignity, and inclusion, and I'll say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for John Mendez, for all of our residents. Presented on this 5th day of May in the year 2026 by myself as chair of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee and Council President Natalie Fani Gonzalez. Happy Affordable Housing Month.
Thank you so much to everyone who came this morning to join us and those who are here today for the rest of the day. I felt like I had to say that. Let's move on to the general business. Madam Clerk, would you please share today's announcements?
Good morning. The Montgomery County Council is extending the application deadline for a representative on the Board of Investment Trustees for the Montgomery County Employee Retirement Plans and the Board of Trustees for the Consolidated Retiree Health Benefits Trust. Applications for the vacancy are due by 5:00 p.m. on Monday, May 18th, 2026. Cover letters and resumes may be submitted by email to council.clerk@montgomerycountymd.gov. More information is available on the council's website. Also, Councilmember Sales is joining today's meeting virtually. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. There are no minutes for approval today. So we're going to start our legislative session, day number 12. Agenda item 1 is the introduction of bills. The first one is Expedited Bill 19-26, Buildings Moratorium on Permits for Data Centers, established. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Glass. A public hearing is scheduled for June 16, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it to the sponsor of the bill before I turn to staff.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Not a day goes by when someone doesn't ask me about data centers in Montgomery County. Montgomery County residents see the surge of data centers around the region and around the country and ask every day if that could happen here. And before we enable data centers to make irreversible harm to our environment, to strain our power grid, and to further increase utility bills on residents, we have to hit the pause button. Our region has the highest concentration of data centers in the entire world, largely because of those in Northern Virginia. And along the Potomac River, we were recently named the most endangered river in the country due to the expanding footprint of data centers. And so in order to protect our residents, we have to evaluate the full spectrum of potential data center impacts with the most up-to-date information, data, and analysis. And that is why today I am introducing legislation that establishes a temporary 6-month pause on building permits for data centers. We have seen what happens when data centers go unchecked and unregulated. We have to have meaningful community engagement using industry expertise, using our residents' knowledge, and using the full breadth of county government to bring people together to figure out how we want to have data centers in our own community. This legislation allows that dialogue to happen. This is not about not having any data centers. It's about doing it right. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Does Council staff have anything else to add?
Just want to clarify that this applies to new applications for data centers that are filed after this bill takes effect.
Very important detail. Thank you for saying that on the record. This bill is introduced. The next bill for introduction is Bill 20-26, Fire and Rescue Services Length of Service Awards Program for Volunteers Amendments. The lead sponsor is the Council President at the request of the County Executive. A public hearing scheduled for June 9, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to ask Council staff to please describe the bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Bill 2026, Fire and Rescue Services, Lengths of Service Awards for Volunteers, Amendments. This bill, as the President stated, is being introduced at the request of the County Executive. It would implement negotiated terms with the MCV-FRA, which is the authorized representative for the volunteer firefighters. And the bill would expand eligibility for length of service benefits. It would increase the amount of those benefits. It also would make amendments to survivor benefits for volunteer firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. This bill is introduced. We're going to move on to the next bill for introduction. Is Bill 21-26, Employee Retirement Systems, Savings and Benefits Amendments. The lead sponsor is the council president at the request of the county executive. A public hearing is scheduled for June 9, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it back to staff to please describe the bill.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill, Bill 21-26, would implement terms negotiated between the county executive and the authorized representative for county employees, McGeo. Some of these aspects were discussed yesterday when you discussed compensation. Essentially, this bill would expand eligibility for Group G, which is the deputy sheriffs and correctional officers. It would make some alterations with respect to Group J, which is the retirement group for employees of Emergency Communications Center and correctional facilities. Let's see. Importantly, the bill would increase employee and employer contributions for the Guaranteed Income Retirement Plan and also for certain members participating in the Retirement Savings Plan. It would make other related changes, and the bill will be considered by the GO Committee. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. This bill is introduced. We're going to move on to the final bill for introduction today is Bill 22-26, and I know a lot about this bill because the Economic Development Committee has requested it, and I have been waiting for it, and now it's here. So thank you. It's Finance Economic Development Fund, Small Business Innovation, Research and Small Business Technology Transfer, Matching Grant Program, Repeal of Sunset Date. The lead sponsor is the council president at the request of the county executive. Not really, but the public hearing is scheduled for June 9, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. If you can please describe.
Sure, of course. The Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Matching Grant Program is codified at Chapter 2076E of the Montgomery County Code. When it was enacted in 2018, the law had a sunset provision. The law has sunset as of July 1st, 2025. This bill is very brief and simple. It would simply remove the sunset provision to revive the bill. Or to revive the law. It also includes some clarifying transition language related to the program as it exists between that January 1st, 2025 program to the date of the bill's enactment to allow money in the current fiscal year's appropriation to be used.
Thank you very much. This bill is introduced. Agenda item 2 is the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Moved by Council Vice President Balcom, second by Council Member Will Jawando. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. Now we will move on to continue our work session on the FY27 operating budget and FY27-32 capital improvement programs. We're going to start with the Office of the State's Attorney. If anybody who came from that department, please come forward. I see our state attorney here, and I'm going to turn it first to the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Chairman Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you all for being here. The county executives recommended an increase of $1,314,706, or a 4.8% for the state's attorney's office. It is essentially a same services budget, but includes new general fund expenditures to replace the loss of federal grant funding and increase for a digital evidence management system. Changes in the county executive's recommended budget include cost increase for the office's case management system for additional storage capacity, addition of 2 full-time bilingual victim witness coordinators due to an increase in their annual Victim of Crime Act grant, and 3, technical adjustment in various existing grants. There are 2 items that were placed on the reconciliation list: continuation of body-worn camera policy and implementation program, previously federal grant funded, of $314,118. This item funds 4 of 11 legal assistance in the state's attorney's office, evidence review unit, and then there's an increased cost for Axon Justice Premier license, which is $225,383. Additional licenses are needed to acquire a digital management system to store digital evidence from body-worn cameras in car video, interrogation room, and more. And the Public Safety Committee voted 3-0 to place these items on the reconciliation list. And with your indulgence, Madam President, I ask Ms. Farag or State's Attorney Mr. McCarthy if they have any further information.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to add that these two components that are placed on the reconciliation list are interrelated in a way in that the State's Attorney's Office has undergone a transformation in the way they have to process evidence because of body-worn camera video. There are such large volumes of this digital evidence that they must process, and they must process in a timely manner. They have state requirements of how quickly they need to bring felony charges to court, for example. There had been some ongoing backlogs because of COVID and the shutdowns of courts and stuff. I think that's mostly under control, but the reality remains that there's so much digital evidence that they must go through accurately, both for the prosecution, but also to provide to the defense. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Mr. McCarthy.
May I say, the only thing I want to add is the benefits of the Axon Premier Justice licenses. Currently, we are using 53 licenses on loan from the police department, which we've received notification that in future years we're going to be charged for that. However, even under those licenses, we get use of about 10% of the capabilities of those licenses because much of it is restricted by union contracts as what they're allowed us to have access to. May I say, to a certain extent, the cutting of this particular item from our budget, quite candidly, fiscally doesn't save the county a penny. Because the reality is this system, if we got the licenses, if we got this contract, we would have an unlimited number of licenses that would allow us to do all the things that Susan just outlined. But more importantly, right now we're spending about $300,000 in storage fees to maintain storage of all of these items. If you take this item away from us, this item will reduce to a large extent that $300,000 storage cost. The other thing that happens is this particular system also has the capability of providing us with translations and transcriptions. In transcriptions already, we've spent $76,000, translations, $107,000. You're talking about $500,000, basically. So cutting this actually there is no net savings to the taxpayer, and in reality, would cost you more money. I brought Darren is here. He's my IT guy. I got Lisa here, who's my budget guru, who know more about this than I could ever explain to you. But dollars and cents, this doesn't make any sense financially for the county to cut this item.
Thank you so much, Mr. McCarthy. I think you heard me yesterday because you came prepared. So I want to thank you for that. I do have three colleagues who want to speak. I'm going to say right now, this is an item that I'm going to agree with the committee. So I'm going to start with Council Member Kate Stewart.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, and Ms. Frog, I'm sorry if I missed this in the report. Is this one-time or ongoing monies?
For which one are you speaking? The
Either
grant
one.
switch.
Yeah.
The grant switch to fund 4 positions which are filled is ongoing.
It's ongoing?
Yes.
Okay. And then the Axion?
Those licenses, I believe, are annual costs.
Okay, so they're both ongoing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next, Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. I too stand by my vote in committee, but just wanted to clarify in terms of, since you just raised this, Mr. McCarthy, and you were explaining the other costs that having the Axon body camera, I so frequently talk about Axon in terms of body-worn cameras, but I'm not right now. I'm talking about a different tool that Axon has. Those cost savings that will occur by using the license through Axon, which gives you the full suite of things that your attorneys and your evidence review team need in order to meet all the obligations we have under law, those cost savings will occur spread over time as you transition away from the existing translation tools you use and the other sorts of things. So it's not something that is an immediate, as of July 1st, switch. It's going to take time, but they will occur.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I wanted to clarify.
Absolutely agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Councilmember Will Jawando.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, this was one of the items that I know you came prepared because it was on my list to cut.
I heard that.
And so I watched the Public Safety Committee discussion on this. Last year, you intended to piggyback the police department's licenses for the Axon, correct? And you've been using them, and you said maybe we can expand and use that going forward. Do they have Premier access? Hit your mic there. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Good afternoon, distinguished members.
Good morning, and your name?
Darren O'Brien.
Okay, great.
I've been a prosecutor and CTO or director of IT for about 27 years. This is just a critical piece of technology. The equivalent would be going back to using an abacus. Great conversational piece, great piece of artwork, but Montgomery County should not be the last jurisdiction using enterprise licensing between your criminal justice agencies. And this is not just for MCPD, which is a primary police department. It carries over to every single secondary and or law enforcement agency. We have 7. That's a different, that you must understand that this jurisdiction is very different in ways, and it is because you have multiple police departments, which makes the state's attorney's office job that much more difficult. Sorting, indexing. A year ago, we took count. There were 4 million files in MCPD's instance. It's almost impossible to have enough staff to manage that, package it, and give it to a prosecutor in time for them to properly manage that case. And that includes releasing a defendant. We can tell quicker. If we have this technology, we can tell within days versus weeks whether or not we've retained someone inappropriately or appropriately. And we're also protecting victims and witnesses with this technology. We can immediately, when we start to...
And not to cut you off, I'm going to cut you off. I don't think anyone's arguing that we want the technology. What I'm asking is how we access the technology and how we use it and the cost efficiency of that. That's the goal here.
Yep.
And so you had been using MCPD's licenses, and State's Attorney just said you've only been getting access to about 10% of it. That's new information to me. That was helpful to hear. So could you just talk about, do they have a Premier license? Like, why aren't you able to? There was discussion that you thought you could procure through them, but you can't. Just could you explain a little bit about why that's not going to happen and why you need to get your own license?
Okay, so essentially licenses are 3 levels of licenses. Just a user license, then there's administrative license, which essentially is what the police department has and their officers have. They have access to all files unless they're distinctly marked inaccessible. The state's attorney's office has the regular basic user license. So all we can do
currently you have that.
Currently.
And what are you paying for that?
We're not paying anything.
That's what
for
you're just
that.
using from MCPD.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And we're also, our staff is actually inside the police department's instance, which is not something that is traditional across the state or nationally. So we're in their instance. We should not be in their instance. This allows us to get out of the
So it's just not even
instance.
a best practice to be in using sharing the same system.
Not at all.
Okay.
The license available for state's attorney's offices adds extra benefits, let alone the 80% to 90% that we're not using for the police department. See, the police department has access to do these things, but because of the union, they're not allowed to use transcription or translation automatically. Okay. If we have it under our instance, we can turn that on, and that's one of those things that you're going to see where a cost benefit's going to happen quicker. Because we can turn that tool on, and then every piece of body-worn camera that comes in, automatically transcribed.
Got it. Well, I think you made a good case. One thing I would just ask, I know you'll give this to the committee, but I'd be interested too, just to see as you can document those cost savings that you mentioned, just report that back so that we can see that and the public can see it. I think that would be good. Thank you. Yeah.
I appreciate your questions.
Thank you so much. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. We have a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee.
No, I have a question, Madam President. I have my hand raised.
Okay, go ahead. I don't have a text. right
Yes, thank you, Mr. State's Attorney. Just had a few questions. Can you remind me why MCPD is no longer providing the redaction services?
We are in the state's attorney's office department.
Yes, for the Axon system. And so MCPD used to provide the redaction services that the Axon system oversees. So I'm wondering why this cost is now shifting to the state's attorney's office.
Well, we'd have to have the police department expand on that.
Is this translation that you're asking? Or transcription? What was it, Councilmember?
Talking about the same system that we're discussing, of the increase for the Axon Justice Premier license.
Council members, excuse me, Derek Harrigan, Office of Management and Budget. I think Councilmember Sales is asking why police is no longer available to provide licensing for state's attorney.
Thank you.
Do you know the answer to that?
We have limited licensing, but it does not include those tools. So the licenses
Our
are
licenses never included those. The tools for translation or transcription was not included even when we were using the police licenses. We didn't have those capabilities. We were excluded from those capabilities. That's where some of the projected long-term savings cost could come about, because you have $75,000 and $107,000 combined, but $200,000 could be saved in those two pots if we were able to get this product ourselves that would allow us to use translation and transcription.
Yes, and that was the question that
now
Councilmember
you're the
Yawando
only-
has. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so now you're the state's attorney's office is now going to be the only department that conducts redaction of any body-worn cameras.
The police department, I'm sorry, the police department has redaction services for their own needs for Maryland Public Information Act requests where they redact, and that's actually a heavy need for them. I'm not as familiar with what redaction needs are for the state's attorney's office.
Well, it says SAO redaction services by Axon is a $225,000, 383 line item.
Can you please tell me what page you're on, Councilmember Sales? Just want to make sure that we're talking about the state's attorney's office and not the police department.
No, we're talking about the state's attorney's office. It's in the packet.
That's what I thought I just said.
Just noting that in the packet, it does say that the SAO must use other resources to conduct transcription and redaction. I yield.
Yes.
Because it was never, we were, even when we were granted use of the 53 licenses by the police, and we actually need double or triple that number, and quite candidly, this product would give us unlimited numbers of licenses, which would add to our efficiencies, because the police have a limited number of licenses that they allow us, we're very grateful, allow us to use 53 of them, but those licenses do not permit us to use translation or transcription.
Or redaction.
Or redaction.
Okay, because the videos I've seen by the police department have the ability to provide transcription services. So,
but we don't have access to that. The state's attorney's office, even though they let us use it, we have limited access to those 53 licenses. It does not include some of those other services.
but you've been using those limited licenses it did not previously cost an additional ongoing $225,000. I'm just, as Councilmember Jawando mentioned, if it's the will of the body to support this ongoing investment, it is going to be helpful to understand what the benefits are versus what we've been doing this entire time.
Okay.
So I'm.
No.
Councilmember Sales, are you making a motion? I'm trying to follow here. Are you making a motion or
No,
not?
there's no motion. I was trying to get more information before we took a vote and just wondering if there's a third party, why we're not using a third party to redact police worn body camera videos. Because we have a third party that investigates any adverse events that happen during a police involved incident with residents. So is there a reason why we don't have a third party doing redaction of videos?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
All right.
I yield.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. And with that, and since there's no motion, I'm going to say we have a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to move on to B, public libraries. If you're here for that item, please come forward, and I'm going to turn it to the Chair of the Education and Culture Committee, Chair Jawando.
Thank you, Madam President, and welcome our library team down. The Education and Culture Committee voted unanimously to approve the operating budget for Montgomery County Public Libraries, with two items added to the reconciliation list. One was the noise, and then there was an issue with the noise library operating budget impact of $275,500. It was one-time funding to help prepare this treasure for reopening. The noise library we've been talking about this for many years, and since I've joined the council, I think, and finally the community will be able to show up once renovation is complete, and we're excited about that. And this will help refresh the collection for our youngest learners and ensure that it opens with programming capacity. And I just want to give a shout out to the Children's Library Foundation, which has raised money and has been a very strong partner throughout the process, which I think this is why this is an important investment. The second was very important as well for enhanced security guard services at 5 branches. This is a $207,690 item, which in my view is not optional. I will be trying to get it through the process. We've heard directly, I know many of us, from library staff and patrons across the county about conditions in our branches. Of the 190 disruptive orders, behavior orders issued at county facilities all of last year, 125 were issued at libraries. It was 65 just at one library, the Brigadier General Charles E. McGree Library. So I think this is an important item. And then the last thing I'll mention is just Sunday service. We talked about this in committee. There's obviously community concern around the reduction in Sunday service at 10 branches that took effect January 1. And we have committed, and so as the library, and I'll turn to Director Graham in a moment, to working with the community and with us on potential plans of how to restore and engage some of that service in a modified model. So those were the two items, and with your permission, I'll just see if Mr. Director Graham has anything she'd like to add, and then turn to council staff.
Good morning, Council County President Fanny Gonzalez, Vice President Balcom, members of the County Council, Director Darcel Graham from Montgomery County Libraries. I am happy to be joined by my colleagues here, Patrick Fromm, Assistant Director of Branch Operations, Angelisa Hawes, Assistant Director of Facilities and ADA, Felicity Brown, Collection Manager, Maddie Hines-Shellhart, Digital Transformation Manager, and Michelle Wong, Business Manager. I know that there is a lot of questions around Sunday service, so I'm going to yield my time and other introductions and wait for those items to come up. Thank you.
So that was a unanimous vote to put those two items. Council staff, anything to add?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ambinder.
The only other thing to note is there are two CIP changes for the committee's consideration.
Thank you. Yes, please
council's
mention them.
consideration. These are changes to the executive's recommended CIP that were transmitted subsequent to state and federal aid decisions made in April 2026 after the EC committee's original consideration of the CIP. That is for the Clarksburg Library, a funding switch of $2.274 million from GeoBonds to state aid to reflect increased state aid. as well as for the Noyes Library for Young Children Rehabilitation and Renovation, a funding switch of $1 million in GEO-bonds in FY26. That's an increased utilization of GEO-bonds to replace unrealized federal aid, as well as an increase of an additional $700,000 in GEO-bonds in FY27 to provide for contingencies needed for project completion. So the council will have those two items to consider as well.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We're going to start with Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Yes. First, I just wanted, you mentioned that Sunday hours. I'm assuming you assumed that I'd be asking. We did send a letter to you so that you would be prepared on that, but just wanted to hone in that on that issue. Obviously, this didn't come up to the council last budget cycle. It was cited as a budgetary decision, but it was a surprise by us when we found out from community members that it was happening based on a budget decision, since it wasn't a budget question or decision from us. I'm just trying to understand what was the decision based on in terms of the actual branches that were chosen. Was there particular data or metrics circulation that was used to make those determinations, and was there an equity impact study that was performed to assess the impact on the demographics, including age and socioeconomic and racial data?
Thank you, Councilmember Friesen. I'm going to yield to my colleague Patrick Fromm, who leads our branch operations, and then I'll follow up with anything else.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So I want to correct one thing. The decision wasn't made as a result of budgetary pressures. It was a decision made after evaluating the expansion of Sunday service hours coming out of COVID. We made the decision after working for around a year with our union partners and stakeholders in county government to evaluate how our Sundays were going and then make this adjustment. After we initiated the change, we used some of the flexibility that allowed us to have to meet our budget obligations for this year and develop the budget that we put forward. So we made this decision prior to that, and there wasn't a budgetary constraint that forced our hand. Along with that, let me make sure I've got all your questions there.
Yeah, I just said that because that's how it was framed to some community members, that it was a budget constraint challenge, and that in order to restore it, the council would have to fund more money for libraries. And it was a surprise to me as a council member hearing that, because it wasn't a request that had come in the previous budget cycle. So it was a surprising way in which it was described to some community members.
Yeah, I've been chasing that pernicious rumor for a while now at different community meetings. I don't know where that's coming from, but that we've been kind of clear from the jump. This was a change we made based on operational need, not based on budgetary matters. And then regarding input and decision making, we took a stock of the metrics of our Sunday locations and looked at circulation, foot counts, programming data, computer usage. And the way it tended to stack out is that Sundays were the slowest day in most of those areas for most of the branches. The ones that had been open prior to the pandemic showed sustained usage. Those are like our regional branches, as well as locations like White Oak and Long Branch, which had higher than average computer usage and covered areas of the county that the regional locations didn't cover. And so those were the considerations we took into mind when we were making that decision.
Have you shared that usage data publicly?
I don't believe so.
Can you?
I believe so, yeah.
Great. Well, if you could share that public or that data with the council, and I think you should share it publicly, I think it would be helpful to understand the rationale behind the business decision. The last question on this is there was discussion during the Education and Culture Committee about a potential, phased in restoration of Sunday service, based on operational circumstances, based on what you just said. How will that decision be made? What metrics are you going to decide? Is there an order of what will be restored and which branches will be restored, first, second, third, and what will have to happen in order for those decisions to be made?
I appreciate the question. So learning from our rollout of this one, we're going to determine what we can feasibly support with our current allotment of resources, and then try and work with the community to talk with them and gather what sort of impacts they're seeing from the Sunday closure. We've had a customer feedback form up since the change was announced, and a lot of feedback has come in with some really interesting information about the way people use their libraries on Sunday, what they actually want us to prioritize, which is access. And so we have to make that decision in a way that reflects their input and also balances what we can possibly provide, as it's not sustainable to open all the locations on Sunday. But we're committed to continuing to evaluate that and try and make a decision in concert with the community that puts us in a sustainable path moving forward.
If you're able to share how you're going to make that decision specifically, more specifically than we're going to engage the community and then make a decision, I think that would be helpful so that folks can actually understand what that means. I take you at your word that that is what the intention is, but it's hard for a community member to understand and interpret what that means, what is it going to be based on, whether or not it feels like the decision was made based on objective criteria as opposed to, subjective feedback from a small number of folks that you spoke to or didn't speak to. So I would ask for that. I think it would be helpful for libraries. I think it would be helpful for the public, and I think it'd be helpful for the council.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy to do that. In addition to that, I just want to add that my colleague mentioned that we have been working in concert with McGeo for over 8 months on this initiative, and we put every piece of communication we put out did explicitly state that this was not a budgetary decision, but it's based on the strain of our staffing complement. In addition, I would like to also add, we did an analysis of the region and how the region offers access on Sundays, and again, made the adjustment based on that accordingly. Right now in the DMV, and particularly in Maryland, there's only 7 library systems out of the 27 in Maryland that offer access on Sundays. Out of the 7, Montgomery County is the only one that offers access from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. All of our other colleagues offer them from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on a rotating basis. Additionally, I think it's also prudent to mention that this decision is also impacted because of those 6 systems that offer that 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., they do so because they offer their staff compensatory and overtime pay, one in which we cannot do. Sundays is a normal work day for us and our staff, and the strain is not only on staffing on Sundays, but it puts an enormous strain throughout the week to accommodate a 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. So we have been communicating this via all of our platforms, social media, our website, print, and on our doors. We have notified council in November of these changes. I began a new communication, actually 2 new communications with council to keep you abreast of all the changes in libraries, because we do understand everything we do impacts our public, impacts our community access. And so the library changes at a glance communication is designed to give you a kind of a heads up of some of those impactful changes. Some of them I've sent not only include Sunday service. I've gotten questions on some of our workforce development contracts and things like that, databases, resources. We're going to try to over communicate as much as we can, but ensure that council is also, again, aware of all the changes that are happening in libraries.
That would be helpful because the council was not informed of the changes that we're making related to Sunday services before we heard it from others. So I would appreciate that, particularly for district council members where our residents are, particularly relying on a specific district and community-based library. That would be
absolutely happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions on the CIP piece. Should I ask them now or should I wait? Okay. All right. I'm going to turn to the CIP. Thank you for responding to those questions. And look forward to the follow-up on the additional questions that I had on those issues related to Sunday hours. I did want to talk about the Chevy Chase Library site. This has been an ongoing conversation that we have had. I had some very specific questions and requests of DGS and libraries from our previous conversation on that. I don't think many of those questions have been resolved. I did want to just note the CIP language changed. The CIP language from the approved FY23 to FY26 said, quote, "This project will provide a new library with mixed-use development at the site of the existing library," end quote. And then the new CIP language for FY27 is recommended as, quote, "This project will provide improvements to the existing library," end quote, with no mention of housing. So the first question is, what does that actually mean in terms of the expectations if we approve the language, which is, I'd like to ask how common it is for the county executive to change the language in a PDF in the capital budget from one project, from one capital budget to another. How common is that practice, number one? And number two, what would the operational impact be of this if there is no mention of housing, even though the county executive, at least abstractly, has talked about housing?
Good morning, Greg Oss, Department of General Services. I think as it relates to the switch in language, really just represents the pivot that the county executive made on following the community input that we received on effectively two scenarios. One was to renovate the Chevy Chase Library as it stands currently, and the other scenario was what we took to the public, which was a full-on redevelopment of the site. And Mr. Einbinder has included the results of that public solicitation for development or redevelopment scenarios that were evaluated by both the public and, of course, the county executive branch. Ultimately, the executive decided that renovating the library in place with an opportunity to create infill housing, so in other words, abandon the idea of redeveloping the entire site into a mixed-use project. And I believe those different scenarios are included in your packet. They're also up on our website and have been since we made that solicitation back in, I think, 2023. In any event, so that is the switch in language. So it's a pivot in course to simply put the resources into the existing building that it requires, renovate it, and then create an opportunity for infill housing. Certainly is the county executive's intent in the event that the current CIP or PDF is unclear about that. I can assure you that it is his intent to create that infill opportunity, and if additional language is appropriate, I'm sure we'd be open to reviewing that or actually proposing some language to fill in the blanks there if it's not clear. But that is the current executive's recommendation, which is to provide the resources necessary to renovate the Chevy Chase Library. Some of those renovations are currently underway using level of effort projects like the elevator modernization and the building envelope, new roof, et cetera. But the rest of the renovation is programmed in the CIP, and then ultimately that creates an opportunity for infill residential. One correction, not necessarily a correction, I think it's just semantics from your packet. It notes that the timing of the solicitation for that infill development would occur at construction. I want to back that up a little bit. What we would like to do is go out to potential infill developers and partner with them so that we're syncing construction of both at the same time. So in other words, when the renovations occurring and the library is closed for a period of time, it would be the same time that we're introducing the construction of the infill development so that it's one seamless construction project instead of several mobilizations and trying to have a future housing project compete with the library operations after we've recently renovated. That would be ill-advised. And
so when would the solicitation occur if the construction is going to be simultaneous?
We're just waiting on the timing based on this CIP and the current, if the current schedule holds, the solicitation would go out very soon, would be our recommendation. If the date of the renovation changes as a result of reconciliation in this deliberation, we would adjust. But if the current schedule holds and we're expected to begin the renovation on the schedule as it is in the PDF, we'd want to get the solicitation out this fall.
We have in the packet a summary of the work that's been done by DGS, which I appreciate. We've talked extensively here since 2020, I believe, in terms of construction bid results and otherwise. Has there been a formal cost analysis on the different scenarios, and have you shared that publicly?
Different scenarios as it relates to
the different things under consideration in terms of the project itself and the co-location of housing on the site?
So when we were considering a full-on redevelopment of the site, we did just some orders of magnitude. So if we were doing a tear-down rebuild of the library, the cost estimates were nearly $20 million. That's just a general placeholder of $1,000 a square foot for a new county library all in, and that's commensurate with all of our other facilities, rec centers, et cetera. Just kind of a placeholder number, not exact. And then that coupled with a new parking structure, which would obviously be required because the site is rather small, and combining that with a mixed-use residential project would necessitate a parking garage, and so therefore the cost of the library and parking goes up from there. And then, of course, big picture, our housing folks took a look at the subsidy or housing initiatives fund or other pots of money that the county has to facilitate an affordable housing project, which presumably this is. And that could range anywhere from 10 to 20 or north of that. So a full-on redevelopment of the site, I believe the placeholder number that DGS proposed OMB considered was somewhere north of 40 million, as opposed to the current CIP, which is the, as you noted, the patchwork that's occurred over the years, combined with the current level of efforts that are underway, combined with the capital improvement program that's before you today.
What's the number of townhomes and expected subsidy for the townhomes?
So when we test fit townhomes for the site, they run on the north and east side of the site, and a couple of different scenarios. The yield was somewhere between 15 and 20, and then depending on the executive and council's desire to, how many of those are affordable would determine the cost subsidy there. As you are aware, that community market rate towns are quite expensive and probably would require no subsidy. That is not the executive's intent. And so without going out for that solicitation and having the development community tell us what they would need in order to deliver based on the affordability component that we would insist upon, we wouldn't be able to answer that.
County Executive has been very outspoken on his views on market rate townhouses, particularly in this part of the county. So it's a little bit interesting on that view. So it'd be helpful for us to really understand what is the expectation on the townhomes and also the parking plan for the site, because it seems to me you're using the parking lot for the library site. In one scenario, you're suggesting that there would have to be structured parking because of parking needs. In the scenario that you're suggesting now, all of a sudden the parking needs disappear.
That's right.
Is that because you
That's
don't
exactly
think that
right.
the townhomes and the
and a mixed
renovated
use
library are going to need the parking that currently exists?
on a mixed use development or mixed use redevelopment scheme? You're effectively going to structured parking or underground parking in order to yield the footprint of the library combined with a multifamily residential project on top of it. And then
But you
just
believe
site
that the site
circulation.
can sustain significant reduction of parking to facilitate 15 to 20 townhouses plus the townhouses? And their
We
parking
are
needs?
able to actually maintain the parking. So we had a parking count, a minimum that we worked with libraries on. And we're able to maintain that even with the infill, yeah.
So you can build townhouses on the site, keep all the parking.
Required for the library, surface parking, yes.
Can you share how
Sure.
that works?
I believe
with
it's
us?
on, yeah, sure. Well,
Specifically on the parking piece,
Sure.
because I don't think it was shared.
absolutely, and I just wanted to be clear on the market rate towns, because you're absolutely correct. The executive has been extremely clear on his intent and goals. But as part of our analysis, the Department of General Services, as part of its review and evaluation, and in conjunction with the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, if it is market rate, it obviously has less of a cost impact to the projections overall. So when we're doing an apples to apples comparison for the executive's review, we include varying levels of affordability based on the partners and so forth and so on. So that was my only reference there. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'll have more follow-up questions. I think there are more questions here than answers because there isn't really a plan. There's an idea of what could move forward potentially. We'll see how that works and how much it's going to cost and what the net impact is going to be. I do think that we should include language, whether it's the previous language that was approved or whether it is new language, but that specifically notes the housing on the site. I would be fine moving and will move the previous housing. To me, mixed use development would include townhomes next to a library. But certainly I think everything should still be in the mix until we have a formal plan of what makes sense and what doesn't. So I'll move the original language.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Andrew Fitton, second by Councilmember Will Jawondo. I don't think we need any more discussion. I think it's very clear.
actually installed.
Well,
Sorry.
just-
Do you have a,
Yeah.
on this item?
Yeah,
On the Chevy Chase library?
and on other.
Oh, no, I'm gonna go back.
I have both.
Yeah.
I have comments.
Okay. And I'll just say just a second, that previous language was my language, was my motion to put that language in there, so I would like it, I'm glad we're putting it back. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm gonna turn it to Councilmember Kate Stewart.
All right, I'll just do the last item first and just want to say thank you to Councilmember Friedson as the district council member, but as somebody whose district is very close to this area and have heard from residents very clearly that this is not what they had anticipated. And I think this is just a hallmark of this county executive's budget in which we are discussing things that should be discussed outside of the budget conversation, because this was a change after the community was very vocal, and I think prior councils and this council about how we feel about looking at options for co-location of housing on sites. And so I just wanted to note that and thank my colleagues, Councilmember Jawando and Friedson, and join in their comments. Just also want to say thank you to the Director of Libraries and the whole team. Very excited for Noyes Library. We are moving forward the groundbreaking this weekend. Thank you to the chair and the ENC committee. This has been not only the community, but I do want to do a shout out to our state delegation, because our state delegation has been very supportive of this and provided funding as well. So we're very excited. And also on the security guards, just want to thank Director Graham as someone who has one of the libraries that has unfortunately a high amount of incidents. I know the entire team has been working to help our entire community and ensure that our library is welcoming for everyone in our community. And in order to do that, we need to make sure we are staffed appropriately. And so I just want to say thank you for all that work and the partnership on that. And I'm done.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table. I know there's people wanting to speak. I wonder if you can please take the motion first. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously. So next I have Councilmember Kristen Mink.
Thank you. So first I wanted to note that, so going back to the Sunday hours, because that was, of course, the majority of the public hearing, and we love to see our community members coming out to advocate for more hours at the libraries, but this is certainly a major conversation in the community, as has been alluded to. And as lead for libraries, of course, I'm fielding a lot of questions and comments from the public as well. And so I did want to provide the context that, well, first I will note that my office did receive communications. I believe that the council what was communicated with about the Sunday hours. So I appreciate that. Of course, once it starts hitting and the public starts seeing it, that does absolutely increase the visibility, and as we can anticipate, increase the amount of communication that we're getting. And I encourage the public to continue advocating for those Sunday hours. I think that's something that we all want. When I first came onto the council and became lead for libraries, I had many meetings with McGeo members who worked in the libraries, and the staffing issues were a major source of discontent. And so this has been one of McGeo's, primary issues. And so this has really needed to be addressed for a while, and it's difficult to take on because once the community is used to certain hours, taking them away obviously is painful. And we all love libraries here. So it's difficult to make the transition, but it was clear to me that something had to give, that the model that we were in was one of an emergency, of necessity during the peak of COVID, when libraries became our touch point in so many ways. We needed people there to be able to provide more services than libraries had ever provided before. And that put serious strain on the staff there. And that becomes a recruitment and retention issue. It can spiral and compound. And so we were at a point of it not being sustainable, essentially. So something did have to happen. And what I want to make sure, I know that you have said this, and please feel free to jump in and say any more, but this is part of a longer term strategic staffing plan. And so ideally, of course, we would all love to see our libraries staffed to the point where we can be open all day, every day, you know, including on Sundays, and have that be sustainable. But we are not at the point where a same services budget covers that. It just does not. It's not a sustainable model. It is not fair to ask of our staff. And you are at the point where trying to make that happen meant that you were falling below minimum staffing levels. That creates additional safety concerns, disruptions to programming, rolling closures were happening. So this was a change made again to accommodate the budget that you have. Like this is not a budget, a result of a budget cut. This is because we do not have the funding here to even maintain, because it wasn't enough before. And so it's still not enough. So we need a new plan. And this is not, the intention is to not leave it like this forever. This is part of a larger staffing strategy. And I think that we will all be eager here as you work through that with the union. We'll be eager to hear how much it's going to cost for us to be able to increase the hours in a way that is sustainable and that is functional and that allows you all to rely on the full staffing that is needed and the programming that is planned and all of those pieces. But we do need to make sure that we have something in place where everyone knows exactly when everything is going to be open. The programming you say is going to happen is actually going to happen, and we're going to be reliably meeting those minimum staffing standards. Is really, really critical. That is the responsible thing to do. I would love to see more funding move into the space so we can increase the hours. I know that you all would too. So I just wanted to make that clear, and thank you for taking on what is a difficult shift and transition as we are all seeing. But I do think that having the opportunity to talk a little bit more about it, every opportunity that we have, to your point, to emphasize to the public that this is not, nobody here is cutting the library budget and having that result in a reduction of hours. We couldn't afford it before, and we still can't, and we have to be realistic about what we're actually able to do and do well. And I also wanted to commend you for something that I believe it was Councilmember Evans who brought this up during committee, and I'm so glad that she did, that you had a very high racial equity score, and an 11 out of 11, which you don't see a lot. And we do need to remember, and thank you, Councilmember Evans, we need to remember to always be talking about those scores, whether they're at the top or whether they're showing need for improvement. But the remarks on it in the packet, anybody can read, are really wonderful, and they talk about the ways in which you are really operationalizing that work. So it's not one-off work. You are working to build it into both internally and externally with the staff, with the programming, to build those ResJ, racial equity and social justice considerations into the work as a part of the fabric of the work. And so I appreciate that. And I did see the numbers that you all used as you were making these Sunday decisions, but I think everybody wants to take another look. And but I appreciate that being a part of the considerations for that work as well. And with that, I will yield.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the library staff and DGS as well for this conversation. Director Graham, I appreciate you sharing with us all of the challenges. There are a lot of them. It is not only staffing to accommodate the needs of our community, and would very much appreciate that data that had been asked before. I think when residents have questions, we should share the data so that they understand for themselves what utilization rates are, what equity accommodations we are making, which for me was the biggest concern when I originally heard from residents and reached out and said, why were these libraries and branches closed? Because they have greater needs, especially on the weekends, when families aren't working, when they are utilizing our computer and technology, which is probably more important than the actual books in those facilities, right? So, and I know you know that, so information is important. The other aspect of the information is about the disruptive orders. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. Prior to being on the council, I ran an after-school program and led the effort to open up a facility in the Silver Spring McGee Library in the lower level. Mr. Ostent knows that very well. Yes, we got that done. And even during that time, I recognized the changing nature of our libraries, that they are open for everyone, and that means everyone. And it posed greater challenges, especially as we are undertaking this budget, where my focus has been, and will continue to be strengthening our social safety net and recognizing people with special needs who might need additional help and support are spending their days in the library. I presume that is probably why there are greater disruptive orders that are requested. 2/3 of the disruptive orders are for calls to our library, and nearly half of the library calls are to Silver Spring. Can you share a little bit more about how the library department is facilitating those concerns, are helping our residents, what the connective tissue is, because we want to make sure that as people are there, that residents are able to do their work and study and research in safety and in solitude, while also we provide additional help for those who are there.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I think it's clear to me and my colleagues now that the information that's available about our uses that's available through OMB that we share at the Library Advisory Council meetings, we need to put a little more context behind because that information we disseminate and is publicly available. So I think we need to now take in note that we need to make sure the public actually understands the data that they have access to. So I'm going to definitely take that back. I just want to thank you for the comment and concern about the safety and security in our buildings. It has been the second top issue that I've heard from my colleagues and partners in McGeo and the staff. It is something that, unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with, and we have been raising the alarm since I have arrived. There's a couple things that we have done that I want to bring to light based on what the capacity as a department, what we have the ability to do. So the first thing we've done, especially in our Silver Spring, our Brigadier General location, is partner with HHS to have professionals in our buildings that are peer recovery specialists, social work, mental health, to be able to assist our community members. So we're not just issuing disruptive behavior orders, but we're actually providing them with some resources. As you know, it is always our intention to make sure our space is open and available to every member of our community. Unfortunately, we in libraries have learned as a result of COVID, it has had a tremendous mental health strain on our community. And to your point, when we reopened after COVID, libraries were the first place that our communities returned to. So we have definitely started that and hope to expand that. And I want to sincerely thank Dr. Bridges and his team. With the help of Division of Security and Director White, we were able to add an additional security officer at the Brigadier General location specifically. The one thing I want to highlight, because while we don't have a lot of budget enhancements, we were really strategic in what we were asking the council to support. And I just want to give a little bit of context as to the 5 contractual security officers we have out of 21 locations. That has been something that the library has been operationalizing out of our budget that we have never received additional funding for. So the additional 5 branch expansion hours would be just that, additional to allow us to expand in those locations. I do want to emphasize a library of our size, similarly DC Public, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, either have a full security force or have contractual services to have security in each location. We are closely monitoring the things that are happening in our schools and some of the challenges that they are up against. Thanks to Councilmember Mink, we've added Another component in our incident reports for hate crimes against staff and community, because that has also been a concern and something that we've been seeing an increase in, as well as serious incident reports that often require MCPD's intervention.
Thank you for that. And it is important that everyone has data, right? Recognizing it's not always disseminated. So thank you for committing to sharing that in real time so that we can share it with our residents. Ultimately, what this comes down to is ensuring that everyone has access to information and to learning, regardless of who they are. And at the same time, we have to ensure the safety of our patrons, our residents, and our staff. And so thank you for highlighting this. I know sometimes this is uncomfortable to talk about, but it is also uncomfortable to witness and to experience. And so let's keep talking and figuring out how we can make everybody in our library safe. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak, and we need to move forward. Is there a motion to approve the public library budget as amended today? Moved by Council Vice President Balcon, second by Council Member Mink. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously. Thank you so much for coming today. We're gonna make a quick change in the agenda just to fit the judge's schedule. We're gonna have right now item J, Circuit Court. If everyone on that item, please move forward, and I'm gonna ask Chair Katz to kick us off.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The county executive recommended an increase. For those who are following this is 3J. The county executive recommended an increase of $1,230,531, or 5.99%. The county executive recommended budget changes include reallocation of funds from the family grant to the appropriate DOT grant initially budgeted in a wrong account, and that has no impact on grant funds. Second is a funding change in the problem-solving court grant, allowing for a shift of a part-time position to a full-time position. And the circuit court has one item on the reconciliation list. It's to enhance support to address the funding gap for positions in family, trial, problem-solving, ADR, and access to justice grant initiatives for $391,877. Of the 129 employees, 29 are funded by state grant, and they historically receive less in merit and general wage increases than those given to county employees, creating a pay parity issue for staff who often perform the same work. The Public Safety Committee recommended 3-0. The approval of the county executive's budget is submitted. And with your indulgence, Madam President, I'm going to turn to Ms. Frog, Judge Smith, or Mr. Sheridan for any further information.
I think you covered it from my end, at least. I'll turn it over to Judge Smith.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for bumping me up. I was just told I have a packed courtroom, so I appreciate it. Yes, having been on the other side, I know how it feels to wait, so I'm going to try and get over there, give you the information that you want, and get back to work. I think the most important thing about this request on the part of the circuit court really is the idea that we want to be able to pay our grant position folks the same amount as the other county people who are doing the exact same work. And I also want to point out that these positions, these grant positions, are really folks who are serving the lower socioeconomic folks who come into the courthouse, helping with our access to justice, our self-help attorneys. I believe 2 of the attorneys who are in our self-help office are paid for through this grant. Our problem-solving courts folks, so mental illness, mental health court and drug court. Our data analyst, one of our data analysts is paid for through these grants. And, you know, we obviously think it's important to be able to pay people doing like work the same. And I believe we would be in a position where if we do not get this additional funding, we would not be able to have some of these people continue working in the court. Anything else you want to add? No?
Thank you for that explanation. I have Councilmember Will Jawanda.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you for being here. My question revolves just around that last part of your statement. I get the pay equity issue, which I agree with. Unfortunately, we have issues in a lot of places where people should be getting paid more, particularly contractors. So how does it relate to you wouldn't be able to keep the positions if it's just to bring their salaries up? Could you explain that? Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Council. It is a very good question. They're doing the exact same job, sitting next to each other. One is purely county funded. The other is the revenue comes from the state. We treat the employees exactly the same. They're all county employees, 129 of them. We just have a revenue source. So if we were not able to pay them equitably, eventually they would leave. So what we're asking.
Oh, it's not that they wouldn't have the positions. You're just thinking they might leave.
Yes, they would. It's equity. It's just, and it's also equitable.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
it might be HR issues and all kinds of things. And so what we're asking for, we get 90% covered by the state. It's that 10% that does the valuable jobs that Judge Smith pointed out. And to keep that, so I would argue the leverage argument that the county gets the 90% by paying the 10.
And that would be an ongoing cost every year to equalize it.
And this ask is probably 3 years worth of it. So, for example, this year, I think the state just issued their cost of living at 1.5, I believe, and the county has not yet issued it, so we don't really know, but we know what we think it is. And there's going to be a roughly 2.5% gap.
Okay. So you just told me something that's going to make me want to cut you. You said it's 3 years worth of it. So this is we do a budget every year, and this is an extremely tough one. So I just want to make sure I understood what you said. Is there a way to put this on the list at a lower amount that would meet the gap for next year?
Well, if we get this, then next year the gap would probably only be 120,000. It'd be a third of it.
I think we haven't asked for it every year.
We've just eaten it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it would not eliminate the gap. It would just put you on track to eliminate it over time.
Yes.
Is that correct?
It would be at least less of a gap
So this would not eliminate, there would still be a gap.
Until the state and county ever got on the same page.
Yeah, good luck with, we're working on that.
And even when they're on the same page with the same rate, they do different times, and either way we get caught in the fluctuation.
Okay, all right. Well, I think it's an important piece of funding. I just wanted to understand how it was relating. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that explanation. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. With that, we have a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously. Thank you so much for coming, and good luck, Judge. So now we're gonna go back.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So next is we're gonna go back to item C, and that's Montgomery College. And as they move forward, I'm gonna ask Chair Jawando to kick us off again.
Thank you. Earning my salary this morning. So the Education and Culture Committee unanimously recommended reducing, and I'll emphasize reducing with the college's great work, Montgomery College's FY27 county contribution by $4.6 million, they're offsetting this reduction by authorizing the college to draw on its OPEB trust assets to cover that same amount. So it won't be a reduction in their budget, but it'll be pulling from the OPEB trust assets, which would allow no programs to be cut. We also recommended keeping Montgomery College's remaining $1.7 million above maintenance of effort off the reconciliation list so they can be guaranteed, since they're coming and making this being a great partner, as they always are. So this is possible, and I want to appreciate our staff and college staff for working together on this to their budget was already lean, 1.3% above maintenance of effort. But when we identified this savings, they said yes, and it's a really good faith approach. They have a really well-funded OPEB trust, 86%, I think, it was the number. And so they're, just like the county did a few years ago, they can start paying for current benefits from the trust, and that will allow them to supplement and give us some money back in our budget when we really need it. And so with that, I'll turn it over to, we also talked about, Mr. Prouty, can you also I'll turn it over to you, but can you also mention the other piece around, I'm missing something here, the two positions for IT.
Indeed.
I'll let you mention those.
Thank you, Councilman Juando. So there was also an addendum to the packet that was sent around this morning. There's two other pieces the committee considered in terms of amendments to the capital budget. A number of technical adjustments were made following the resolution of state aid, and there was a revised non-recommended reduction list sent to us on April 15th. The committee did approve this, so the recommendations are to unanimously accept the amendments to the CIP. They involve the Rockville Michael and Tower Library Project, the Rockville Theater Arts Building Renovation Project, which would be put on a faster schedule, and would also involve a reduction on the state level in terms of support for the German Student Services Center, and subsequent to that, they would be placed back on the list for the 6-year CIP. The other piece that the committee recommends is to recommend restoring $3.625 million to the Information Technology Program, part of the CIP, as part of the reconciliation project. That was cut due to current revenue.
Yeah, and thank you. And that was a big discussion. That would go on the reconciliation list, but it was very important to the college, and I'll let maybe Dr. Williams say any opening comments, but that was the committee recommendation. Dr. Williams?
Thank you, Councilmember Juando. Good morning, Council President Fanny Gonzalez. Good morning, Council Vice President Balcom. Good morning, Council members. It's great to see you. Thank you for your leadership. And just to share, I know Councilmember Juando and Mr. Prouty shared a lot, so I'll stick to the things that they didn't share. And let's talk about how your community college really quickly for 30 seconds is thriving, right? With increasing enrollment and increasing graduation and persistence rates. And we're doing that because we're innovating, right? The adjustment increase that we're asking for, the 6.3, is the first in 4 years. Right. In those 4 years, we've seen immense increase in enrollment. As I said, graduation rates. We're doing that because we're ideating, we're innovating. We created a Raptor Ready Scholarship a few years ago that provides $1,000 for Montgomery County high school students to jumpstart their career, their academic journey at Montgomery College. We've also, thanks to many of you, since June, just this last year, since July of 25, we've distributed almost 82 tons of food at our mobile markets between July and March, and so many of you have contributed to that. More than 6,000 households have been impacted by that. Almost 1,300 volunteers that we estimate at a little more than $45,000, right? So we're finding different ways to holistically support students. So when you're investing in your community's college at a time right now when affordability is so key, you are investing in a resource that is creating impact for lives, for families, for our community members. So I really am encouraging you, I'm asking you, I'm inviting you to continue supporting Montgomery College. We've been great fiscal partners. We reduced our CIP by $54 million with the understanding that our IT would be intact. And this is our IT base that we're talking about, requesting you to put on a reconciliation list. This is a 25% to the base of our IT that we're asking you to put on a reconciliation list and ideally let us, move forward with at the end of the day. So when you consider that and the agreement in regards to the OPEB trust, please, we value our partnership with the county. We value everything that we can provide to the county. We're here because we are the community's college. And the last thing I'll share, without new operating dollars in 4 years, East County Education Center is about 2 years old. Right, our first phase was to serve 1,000 students. We've served more than 2,300 students. I can go on and on about how great Montgomery College is and the return on investment, but I'll stop because I know you recognize it, I know you appreciate it, and I thank you all for your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you for those words and for being such an amazing partner. Montgomery College has been in the back of my mind since we have received the county executive's budget, and I want to also appreciate Craig Howard from our team, because he and I discussed how can we make sure that we don't touch Montgomery College, and we came up with the op-ed idea, and we reached out to your folks, and that's how we're going to make it happen. Because if there is an agency, an institution that has been amazing and has produced so many talented people from our county, is you. And we're very proud to have you. So I am in full support of the committee recommendation, including the technical amendments for the CIP that were discussed. I see a couple of people who wanted to speak. I see Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. I just want to add my thanks. The college is always such a great partner throughout the entire year, and I have to say during the budget as well, really collaborating with us. And I want to thank the council president, chair of ENC, and our staff for working with you, and just emphasize that the use of OPEB money is a one-time adjustment, and to strongly encourage the college, and I know our team is happy to help with this too, but to put a plan in place for the use of OPEB money going forward. That is something the council did for our county government a few years ago, and it has been very helpful, especially when you have a well-funded trust to be able to make the type of decisions that you were able to make this year. So I just wanted to extend my thanks to your entire team and all the work that you've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom.
Yes, I just wanted to add my thanks too, in terms of how the college comes into the budget process. We've been, first off, we're so fortunate to have Montgomery College in our community. I think everybody agrees of the great work that you do. But it's really great during budget time, because you have been very fiscally responsible, and we so appreciate that. And I think that this was a minor ask to begin with, and I think that the OPEB solution was great, and I support the committee's recommendation, and I also support our GO chair's comments about the one-time use of funds. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. With that, we have a recommendation by the Education and Culture Committee as amended with the technical issues that were discussed for the CIP. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. Thank you so much for the partnership. We're going to move on to item D, Police Department. If our folks from Public Safety come forward, and I'm going to turn it back to Chair Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The Public Safety Committee approved the recommended budget for the Police Department of $385.7 million, an increase of 9.4%. It is mainly a same-service budget, sustaining operations rather than expanding services, given the department's sworn vacancy rate at 14%. The following items were placed in the reconciliation list. Replacement of the automated external defibrillators, also known as AEDs, assigned to patrol officers who often arrive first on a scene. That was $532,000. Trial board resolution required by law when an officer appeals an administrative charging committee's decision, and that's $300,000. A case management support for the Investigative Services Bureau with criminal investigation, that's $180,000. And as of 9/20 today, we received a letter from the FOP that suggests that we could cut, they suggest that we could cut this case management software system for the $180,000. The second item that they suggested we could cut was the vehicle recovery software to manage vehicle recoveries and impoundments for $180,000. And mid-year FY26 M3 position in the vehicle recovery section at $160,458. I might have gotten one thing wrong on what their letter said. And the last thing they said was the fixed automatic license plate reader technology to focus on stolen vehicles for $150,000. They're also on their list, which no one is suggesting we cut, especially Councilmember Mink, is the crossing guards for Burtonsville Elementary and Greenwood Elementary for $177,162. The Police Accountability Board Public Portal for $30,000, a new investigator position to replace contractors for $1,859. The mid FY26 action to reflect full Emergency Communications Center, also known as the ECC, staffing for $1,992,606. It would restore 25 positions that were removed in the FY25 budget. The committee voted 3-0 to reduce the CE's recommended amount by $629,244 to reflect mid-year hiring of half the positions, the loss of Homeland Security granting in $120,000, and the crime analyst software for $29,096. Other operating items, the red light speed camera contract at $11.1 million and body worn camera contract at $3.2 million. The county executive sent over 2 CIP amendments on March the 13th. One was for the 4th District Police Station, which is Wheaton, which is a new project with placeholder funding of $40 million. 2 was an outdoor firearms training center in which the CE removed $300,000 for the program of requirements. The Public Safety Committee voted 3-0 in support of the 4th District Station project, and committee voted 2-1 with Council Member Mink dissenting to restore the funding for the Outdoor Firearms Training Center. I now would like to turn it over to Ms. Frog and Chief Yamada for any comments. We need to double check that FOP letter you have it. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to clarify that because there are 2 items on that reconciliation list on page 2 of the staff report, which is a case management system for $180,000 and the vehicle recovery software system for $180,000. I believe the FOP letter was talking about budget change number 4. Budget change number 3 would actually be in the Investigative Services Bureau.
Okay. So if we were to ultimately take their suggestion of the 3, I believe it's $490,458, and are those numbers correct?
You're going to make me do math. Hold on. $520,458.
520. Okay. Very good. Chief Yamada.
Thank you, and we got here in the morning. Is it afternoon yet, or we still morning? Okay. Thank you, Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Council Vice President Joando, the rest of the council members. We understand, Balcom, sorry. We definitely understand the fiscal environment the county is navigating through right now. We recognize that every dollar requested must be justified through efficiency, accountability, in order to provide a real value back to the community. This year's budget is about maintaining service levels in a time of increasing demand and ongoing staffing pressures. Like many police agencies across the country, we are facing staffing shortages, recruitment challenges, increasing call complexity, and a higher expectation for service delivery. Our approach has been not simply to ask for more, it's been to study our operations, modernize where needed, civilianize where appropriate, and to use technology and both constitutionally and strategically. While our recruit classes may be growing slowly, the department is not necessarily outpacing our attrition. By 2028 alone, there will be more than 50 officers who will have to leave the department via the DROP program. Please know that we're doing everything to combat this, but it does also highlight the need for strategic technology choices to offset those losses. Over the past year, the department is taking meaningful steps in that direction. We've completed an operational studies in investigative and patrol functions to better understand deployment needs, inefficiencies, and opportunities for improvement. We have continued implementation of our strategic plan. We have advanced racial equity efforts and accountability initiatives, including alignment with a national best practice in professional standards, such as the International Association of Chiefs of Police Trust Pledge to Framework, that we will be the first law enforcement agency in the entire state of Maryland to achieve that. Those efforts reflect a department that is forward-thinking, data-driven, and committed to continuous improvement. The budget before you reflects many of those first practical steps from that work and those efforts. Several requests here are not expansions of service, but protections of existing service levels that residents already expect. You will hear Chief Augustine and his team speak to the ECC positions, the crossing guards, case management system, LPRs, AEDs, and trial board costs, amongst other things. I want to thank Ms. Farag for her exhaustive work on this and the entire County Council. We respect the process, appreciate the task and consideration before each of you, and we realize that you must think globally, not just about MCPD. We have focused our budget in areas such as officer training and safety, transparent and accountable data management, and professional policing. In other words, every item here emphasizes overall community well-being and trying to achieve our goal of providing the highest quality police services. Thanks.
So I think you said that you're going to turn it to, yes, go ahead, to answer those specific questions.
Sure, I'll be very brief. Assistant Chief Augustine, Chief of Management Services Bureau. So in creating this budget, we really were being fiscally responsible and looking at what is actually our community needs, what our employees need to ensure the safety and overall services to our community. These are a continuation of services. Some of the items here are replacements because the services no longer work. They're not functional, and there's liability concerns as well as public safety concerns. So I will turn it over to Ms. Farag about the package.
I did want to bring up that there are two new council decision points for you on two CIP projects. They are the White Flint Station, which is just I'm sorry, I'm getting my budgets confused. Olney Satellite Police Station. These both reflect the receipt of state aid. The Olney Satellite Police Station adds $1.25 million in state aid, which has been programmed in FY27. That increases total project cost to $2.4 million to design and build a satellite facility on leased space in Olney. The 4th District Police Station, this amendment recognizes the receipt of $2 million in state aid, which is going to be switched for the GEO bond funding. The total project costs remain the same, with about $5 million total programmed in FY27 and FY28. The total placeholder funding for the station is about $45 million. I'm recommending approval on both of those. I did want to also note that OMB sent over a revised PDF for the 4th District Police Station that shows a cost change reflecting the project scope, removing Park Police Headquarters. That is something that the committee did review with the full budget and recommended approval.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Can you please go back to the questions from Chair Katz on the letter from FOP? I just want to make sure I'm clear if you are in agreement with them or what's the situation. I just need to hear it clear from me.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that they were sending the letter until about 30 seconds before I stepped up here. I think we would have a difference of opinion as to what their recommended cuts would be.
Okay, so at least the one on vehicle recovery software system for $180,000.
Dale Phillips, Budget Director, MCPD. I can speak to that one. I'll try and be very brief because I know you got a lot. Give me 120 seconds. Okay.
Everybody here is going to have to adjust their schedules. This is key because we are in the process of reducing our budget, and I don't want to miss anything. So please go ahead.
Okay, on the VRS item specifically, I want to start from a point of agreement. The Public Safety Committee reviewed this specific request and voted 3-0 to fund it, recognizing that not funding it will be short-sighted, and I'll come around to that. So let's agree that that's our baseline. Second, the vehicle recovery section is not speculative. It generates roughly $4.5 million a year in revenue. That is real recurring revenue that goes directly to the general fund from a direct core service public safety function. Third, our system producing that revenue is outdated and unstable. That's been confirmed operationally and observed firsthand, including Council Member Lutke's on-site visit. The platform is unsupported and structurally fragile. If we accept those points, one implication follows. If the system underpinning a revenue stream is unstable, the revenue itself is at risk. At the same time, current operations are inefficient in measurable ways. Code enforcement officer time, administrative processing, sworn officer time, and manual processing. These are real costs already being absorbed every day. Which leads to the next implication. We are already paying for the inefficiency, just not in a way that shows up in a single line item. And if throughput is constrained, that is the number of cars we can process through this process, if that's constrained, if vehicles move slowly through tow processing and auction, then revenue realization is also constrained. We are not maximizing the value of what we already have. So this is not fundamentally a question about software. It is this: are we comfortable relying upon a known fragile system to sustain a $4.5 million annual revenue stream and a core public safety function without doing anything to mitigate that? Because declining to fund this specific response requires accepting a specific assumption that a deteriorating manual unsupported system will continue to perform at a stable or improved level without intervention. We know that assumption does not hold true in practice. I'm almost done. So let's frame it correctly. This is about revenue protection and revenue expansion. Increased throughput means faster auctions, improved collections, and ultimately more revenue to the general fund. So it's ultimately comes down to how we choose to manage something that we know has value. In closing, ask yourself this question. If this were a private sector operation generating $4.5 million a year, would we defer investment in the system that produces that revenue? Thank you.
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask, Member?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So was that for the software as well as the position? Was that for everything?
Just the software, sir.
Just the software?
Yes.
Okay.
And just so you know, based on our conversations with various vendors, that is a initial implementation number for the first year. We know going in years outward, it will go down far from what you pay in the initial first year of implementation.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I'm going to now turn it to Councilmember Wojowondo.
Thank you for the discussion and, oh, your mic, yep. And thank you for Chair Katz for raising that issue. This is one that was on my list of reductions, so you came prepared as well, so I appreciate that. So just talk to me about the relationship. You made the case for the software, which is compelling, about the position. So with the software, could you do without the position?
I'm going to turn that over to AC Augustine.
Okay.
Thanks.
I know you always want positions, but obviously context,
Right.
and we're trying to find reductions.
So what this will also do is there's currently a police officer sergeant that is managing the vehicle recovery section. That position will go back to patrol services. So this is basically replacing that manager. What we are looking for, as Director Phillips said, there's $4.5 million in revenue. We need someone with the skill set to come into this type of enterprise and organize and run this type of organization. Unfortunately, a lot of our police officers have great skills, but in going into accounting and managing a multi-million-dollar facility, this is not within the skill set of a sworn police officer. They're able to assist, and we will also have another sworn officer that will still remain there to help with the law enforcement functions, but we really need someone that concentrate and make sure this organization is running and accounting for the $4.5 million. And speaking to, I know many council members over the past year have received emails from constituents stating that their vehicle was sold or they can't find their vehicle. And that's looking at the overall accountability and responsibility of the unit. Number one, to have software that we can track. Currently they're using pen and paper to track vehicles. And when council members want to know where a vehicle is, we have to do hand research to find it out. Having a system as well as having accountability from a executive manager to be there and be held accountable for what is going on in a organization will provide better service not only to the community but also to the council members. And when there is questions about certain vehicles, whether it was towed, why it was towed, pickups of vehicles and so on, we'll be able to provide those answers and hold people accountable.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You've convinced me on the software. I mean, look, you have attrition. You're hiring new people. There's a lot of smart people in MCPD that are non-sworn. I would hope over time, with the technical assistance from the software that you're going to acquire, that you could manage it appropriately. I'm going to hold on my motion. I'll make a motion in a second. But the second thing I wanted to ask about was the license reader. That was the other thing on the list, this license plate reader. My understanding is that this would be for 50 additional units and that you already have 800 that are in service. Is that correct?
We have good morning, Darren
morning.
Frank,
Yeah.
Chief of Patrol, Montgomery County Police. So we have 800 units that are attached to cars, and so that's a part of our Fleet 3 video. So as officers are moving around at any point of the day, their fleet vehicle has the capability in it and is running an LPR, but that's not in fixed locations. And also, just for clarity, we don't have 800 out there right now. Right now, there's probably about 50 units out there that are with officers, back roads, side roads, main roads, going around as they're responding to calls for service, not necessarily focused on that. So it's right now our system is kind of happen chance, right? If an officer's going to a call or patrolling a certain area, they might catch something. Whereas these fixed units, what we're trying to do is expand upon what is a force multiplier for us. These fixed units would be at major interchanges, major areas where we see a lot of different action coming from DC, from Virginia, from other counties, moving about within the county. And we actually would like to expand it because what it provides, it's not just for stolen cars. It's for every crime that we deal with investigatively. So if you have a kidnapping, if you have a missing person, if you have anything from an Amber Alert to a Silver Alert, this system is used in that. It's a stationary set of law enforcement eyes that can pull in information and our investigators can access and go after. And when you talk about our limited resources now as it is with officers, this just enhances what we're able to do. For example, if you have a robbery in the middle, or a commercial burglary in the middle of the night, and we have a good network of cameras that are out there. And in any district, you might have 8 LPRs out there in a patrol vehicle that are already responding to calls. But if we have our roadways covered with this, commercial burglary, a vehicle goes through at 3 a.m. in the morning. We know the burglary occurs between 2 and 3 a.m. Our investigators can go and look at the tag reads and see which vehicles came down there. And even better, if we have a citizen that saw something, I saw a white van between 2 and 3 a.m., we can go and look and say, okay, here's a white van between 2 and 3 a.m., it's a lead. Now that's for a commercial burglary. Now let's get into homicides, let's get into robberies, let's get into rapes. This system is not about, while it also is about traffic, it's about insurance failures on people that go and have collisions and then they're uninsured with our constituents. That's not a good thing. So we want to do enforcement there. And even better, it's a blind system. It just shows an offense. On the traffic side, it just shows an offense. So rather than having an officer observe, it just merely gives officers the information. That car there doesn't look at who's driving. It just knows that car is a violation. So it's more than traffic. It's more than stolen autos. It really goes to a core framework of dealing with crime in Montgomery County and reducing levels of crime.
Right. And these are, so this request for the 150,000 is for 50 stationary units.
Yes. And I will say this, council member, the technology has advanced so that 50 of these units for 150,000, really just a little bit more than 1 FTE for a police officer, is really an extraordinary price reduction. And as the technology develops, and that's why we call it a force multiplier the way it is, because they didn't cost this before. This is where the technology is going and the price coming down, and really has allowed us to responsibly ask for this budget item. Because before it would have been under different systems, under different mechanisms, it would have been $1 million.
And where's the data stored?
So the data is stored locally with us. It's a 365-day retention. That's what that's what the state policy dictates. We share a little bit. The only thing that we're allowed to share is with MCAC, which is through Maryland State for their intelligence center. But we only share a little bit of that data. It's audited quarterly, and that includes looking at who accessed it, why they accessed it, and then there's a rolling 365, back to the retention, it's a rolling 365, so anything there today that's 364 days old is not going to be there tomorrow.
Got it. Well, I think I understand why you asked for it. I think, there's always more we could be doing in every area.
Yes, sir.
And so I think this budget is tough. So I will make a motion to remove the vehicle recovery position, the $160,458.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have two folks waiting to speak, so I'm gonna take those before I ask for a vote on this motion, okay? So I have Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to reiterate and thank you, Assistant Chief Frank, for your overview of the LPR request, and that, we did have a big discussion about this at the Public Safety Committee, and I had raised a case of the past where an incident of domestic terrorism was prevented and stopped. Those were with LPR units that were on a state roadway. But in full disclosure, I used to work at the MCAC, right? So my desk was around the corner from the LPR unit. So I've seen firsthand the efficacy of this, and also, and Councilmember Balcom, Vice President Balcom, and I went to a town hall on public safety she hosted last night in her district, and residents have concerns about staffing shortages, and there are several things on here that all really intertwine in helping us to manage those staffing shortages, along with the recruitment and retention work that I know the department is doing. But specifically with respect to the LPR program, that is a force multiplier. It isn't a new technology. It is something we already have. And it does truly expedite investigation and crime solving, two things that our residents care deeply about. The other piece on the vehicle recovery, and the motion that was just made, certainly we are sort and patrol. And I, too, don't know that a sworn sergeant needs to be responsible for running and handling the logistics of that operation, which is truly a business operation. The software will assist overall, and that is desperately needed. I already spoke deeply about the operations over there. And no, they shouldn't be working off Post-it notes and a dot matrix printer. Sorry. And I welcome any colleagues to go take a look at it sometime. So I certainly support the software for the vehicle recovery operations, but also understanding, my understanding is that the budget change number 5 on the list is that you would not anticipate starting that person until January 1st, which is a half-year allocation. And so I'm wondering if you can speak to the dollar amount allocated for that, if it's a half-year rate for employment.
I can answer that. It's actually a mid FY26 creation. So it's reflecting a creation in this current fiscal year. The salary is a full year's salary. So for FY27, I don't think discussion said
But-
they would hire in a half a year.
Okay, so there is currently, this is staffed by a sworn sergeant. And the hope is to move a civilian with project management experience and accounting experience and all of that into that role. So there isn't a person currently in that role in the position that this salary in this line item is allocated to. It is currently being served by a sworn sergeant who could be redeployed for other police department operations. Is that correct?
That's correct. The position has not been posted or advertised for hiring yet.
Okay. All right. So the word mid in that line item is a bit of a misnomer because you would be, if this budget item passes, and I respect that there's a pending motion to remove it right now. But if it passes, you would still have to advertise, recruit, and get the person on board.
That's correct. Background check. So it would be a several-month process.
Okay. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify that. All right. Thank you.
Great questions. Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for all the work and the analysis. And I know, we're at the start of our week, and we're going to have other departments that come before us. I know on government operations, we heard from procurement, who wants their an e-system for procurement, which is desperately needed and is actually the second year they asked for it. They didn't get it last year. Yesterday, we heard from our ethics commission, and we had questioning about their system, which has actually failed. And so needing to do that. So I think in thinking about this year's budget is also thinking about what we can do this year, and then what are some things that maybe can wait until next year. Last year, procurement didn't get funded, and they put the request in again, and Ethics Commission was in the same place. So I think the information you've provided us and the work the committee did, I think is very helpful in thinking about making those choices, because honestly, those are choices we have to make. It's not necessarily, is this something that you all need? We hear that. It's, is this a need in FY27? And so, and I hear you. Yes, you would agree with that. And I think Director Ash Shetty would agree that for procurement, he also has a need. That's an FY27 need. And our job is to figure out, can we fit all that in FY27? And so I just wanted to let you know that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. And also the same with the creation of new positions. My concern is creating new positions, knowing what a tight budget we have and knowing how tight our reserves are going to be this year and what we're going to face moving forward over the next couple of months. And so I'm critically looking at any new positions because I frankly am nervous about what is going to face us in the next few months. And that is just why I seconded the motion, because thinking about, I want to make sure the people we have now and the positions we're advertising now, that we can, make sure they have jobs and they stay employed. And I'm critically looking at any new positions that may come up. So just wanted to let you know why I seconded the motion and where I'm coming from. Thank you.
I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. With that, we have a motion by Councilmember Wojawando, second by Councilmember Stewart. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion passes. And then we have a committee recommendation by the Public Safety Committee for the Police Department as amended today. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passes. Thank you so much for coming today. We're going to move on to item E, and that's Fire and Rescue Services. I'm going to turn it back to the chair of the committee, Chair Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Public Safety Committee unanimously recommended approval of Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Services budget of $311,700,388, which is an increase of 0.5%. The following were placed on the reconciliation list. Restored 9 FTE career staffing for an aerial truck at the Hillendale Station, which was $1,787,119,000. Maintained 6 FTE career staffing at the Laytonsville Station for $555,703 instead of shifting to Travilla Station, which was the same amount. The committee wanted to emphasize that these changes are operational and shouldn't be considered as budgetary items. Committee also reviewed and recommended approval of 2 CIP amendments: apparatus replacement program, a March 13th amendment that switches 8.514 from current revenues to short-term financing, and White Flint Fire Station, an April 21 amendment that changes the name to the North Bethesda Fire Station. With your indulgence, I'd like to turn over to Ms. Frog and Chief Smedley for any additional information.
Once again, I think you covered all the salient budget points, and I'll turn it over to Chief Smedley.
Thank you to this body for allowing us this opportunity. There's no doubt that we're supported by some of the most dedicated civilian, volunteer, and career personnel anywhere in the fire service. And I want to make it clear that Montgomery County residents can have the confidence that we're going to take care of you, agnostic of a budget. We're always here, we'll always be here, and we're making sure that we are challenging ourselves internally to serve the community to the best of our abilities. Our mantra is we're a learning organization. We're actively applying those lessons through our master plan. We're improving capacity, particularly in EMS, emergency medical services. We're enhancing workload balance. We're sustaining essential services. And we're maintaining operational resilience. We will accomplish this through the budget process by asking for additional resources, but we also will accomplish this by doing better with the resources you entrusted to us. As a few examples, in FY26, we asked for a transport unit. We placed that in service in the Bethesda area in January of this year, and it's making progress to helping the capacity. In addition to that, we are doing better with our resources. We've upgraded a 24-hour transport unit from a basic life support to an advanced life support in the Aspen Hill area. We also have worked with not only our volunteers, our union, and management to place in service 2 additional ladder trucks with 4-person staffing at no extra cost, and a paramedic rescue squad at Wheaton with 4-person staffing while the volunteers can help staff that at no extra cost. Those are just some small examples of us using our master planning, learning from that. I would be remiss to say that we are going through growing pains, which is something that happens when you have growth. And so we're working through those things, and we have someone inside our organization today, and they'll be here with us for some time to help us grow together. I can tell you that I can go on and on. I know we have a long agenda. I will not. But at the end of the day, we will figure out our ways to be creative with our resources, be partners and fiscal stewards with the resources you provide us, and help to find ways to, with the finite resources that we have, to cover our community. And with that, I will turn it back over to Susan Farrar.
Thank you. I see Councilmember Will Jawando.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, team. All the chiefs, all the folks in the audience. Thank you for everything you do. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to the Hillendale service. The county executive's budget recommended a reduction there, and just want to allow you to provide context. Obviously, you heard the last conversation. You've been here for a while. You've heard a lot of conversations. We have a very, very tough budget, and we want to maintain high quality public service and public safety for every resident. But Could you talk about what it would mean if that was not included, and how you're currently operating and how you would operate?
Yes, so if I can quickly go over the guidance that's provided for the budget process for fire and rescue. We had a 3.5% reduction that we had to come up with. That was not to lose any person's jobs, so there were no jobs on the line for that. A 3.5% reduction is $11 million, about $11 million for us. In addition to that, if we needed to find any enhancements, we had to find an additional reductions to cover those enhancements. I can tell you all who've gone through budgets over and over again, the only way that the fire service can do that large amount is through services, which taps into operations. It is no way I can avoid tapping into operations with that large amount of funding that we have to cover. So when you ask about what were some of the considerations, first I had to comply with the guidelines provided. Secondly, we have to make the least worst decisions. Right? That's what it is, the least worst decisions. As we know, some of our Upper Montgomery just went through their 80-year anniversary as a volunteer corporation. 80 years, right, in Upper Montgomery. 80 years look different that long ago to where it is now. And so our system was built on local fire and rescue departments, and then it converted to a one united system under the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service. What does that mean? I can't pick up a station and move it. So the best next option is to look at where the resources are, look at where their needs are, and move them accordingly. We need EMS because that's 78% of what we do. The next thing that's most important is getting fast water to the fire. When a fire occurs, when we can get fast water, the emergency goes away. Then it's looking at the other aspects of our ladder trucks. That's the third priority. So EMS, fast water to the fire, and the third priority. So as it relates to the decision-making process, based off the guidelines that were presented in the budget, based off our master plan, based off where the priorities are to cover our community, and based off those constraints, that was the considerations as it relates to the Hillendale being destaffed. And what that means is they're being operationally, they'll be it'll go out of service, and those personnel will be used to cover overtime reduction elsewhere throughout the system.
Okay, and the committee voted to restore those 9 positions. That would be on the reconciliation list, obviously not guaranteed to come off, but I wanted you to be able to speak to it since it's a pretty large item.
And as it relates to operations, it is surrounded by, that truck is surrounded by other trucks. Now, based off our performance measures of 10 minutes, we will cover about 90% of those. So we wouldn't be able to cover the 100%, but we'll be able to cover about 90% of that 10-minute performance measure.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you all for being here again, and for your ongoing collaboration and responsiveness. I know everybody's had a lot of questions, and certainly, for the benefit of colleagues who weren't able to watch or review the Public Safety Committee hearings, I know I had lengthy discussions with you all about the operations decisions versus budget decisions, and why, from the public's perspective, they're concerned about, do we have enough firefighters? What's the response time, right? And what does this mean for me where I live? And those are operations decisions that the department needs to manage. But because of how this comes before us, it makes it appear to be a dollars and cents decision as opposed to operations deployment decision. And so then, this is how we received it from the county executive, but it makes it appear that the council is taking away funding for fire operations that will adversely impact our residents. And that's at the end of the day, as we discussed, you as the chief of the blended fire service have the capability to make those decisions at any time, irrespective of the budget. And just wanted to get you to, acknowledge that as we sit here now and take the straw vote as the full council.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the question you're posing, do I have the operational authority to make changes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, regardless of what we do or do not do here today.
Correct.
Okay. And thank you, Councilmember Jawando, for, asking the questions about the response time. And those are things that we all are going to be and continue to be concerned about. I know we talk about recruitment a ton in the police department, but we haven't always had, the lengthy discussions about recruitment of the fire department and within our volunteers too. Yes. Because I want to acknowledge that they have been trying also to expand their fleet, and that we need to revisit that outside the scope of budget. And lastly, because this was something raised at the Public Safety Committee, and Ms. Farag had highlighted it, and also you have noted SB 445, which passed this year, which adjusts how overtime compensation gets computed, or when you would start to be able to accrue that for our firefighters statewide. I note that does have a longer runway to implementation, so we don't have to consider that in this year's budget. But we are going to have lengthier conversations about how overtime works, about how currently under existing contracts it works, about ways to refine procedures for the department as to how that works, and to make sure we get into compliance in time for the October 1, 2028 deadline under here, which will have a significant funding impact to the county. And I didn't know if you would want to speak to that at all.
Yes. So for the greater audience, Bill 455 speaks to 168 hours, and our personnel, after 168 hours, you have a premium pay. Now that bill is going through the process, and nothing is being appropriated from that bill. So it's translating to the local level. And so right now, our career personnel work a 48-hour work week. So if we just do simple math, that means every week we have to pay them an additional 6 hours at premium. Pay period, that's 12 hours. Right now, it's roughly about $10.5 million. And I know yesterday you voted to move the collective bargaining agreement forward, and thank you for that. But that just means that any raises that come up, that's more funding that we have to come up with for out years. So the good part of it is during the negotiation process, there was a lot of discussions around that and some models that were evaluated. So we have a starting point. It's not going to be easy, but we are some of the things that you mentioned, Councilwoman Lukey, are contractual. So that's in a negotiated space. So we will have those discussions, but we are understanding that it will hit our FY29 budget, and we will do everything that's possible to make sure that we're ready for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for the explanation. And we look forward to working through this sooner rather than later. I know October 1, 2028 often seems like a long time off. It's not. We need to start these discussions as soon as we wrap up this budget. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Andrew Fritzen.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments, clarifications, and the questions. Appreciate your work, Chief, and appreciate raising the Senate Bill 445. That is going to be a dynamic that we're going to have to work through with our firefighters and with the management and leadership to figure out how we navigate those changes, and hopefully there'll be some offsets and ways that we can work together to figure out what makes sense, doing right by the people who are putting themselves in danger, but also making sure that we can sustain the workforce and manage and operate the department. I appreciate the comments about response times. I'll just note I'm here because of our emergency response times. I went into anaphylactic shock and had to be intubated, and because of the professionalism, because of the training, I am literally alive today, so this is not lost on me. These conversations and what they actually mean to real lives and real people every single day in our community. I did just want to ask a question. We talked about this when we spoke about your budget before, but the 3.5% reduction and every enhancement needing to have an offset. This is more of a question for OMB than for the chief. Do we have a list of that? Can that be shared with us, not just for the fire rescue service, but for all the departments, of what the 3.5% in proposed reductions were for all the departments that they had to put forward, and then what the offsets were specifically within their budget for the enhancements that were proposed? Because I heard that, but I'm not aware that we have ever seen that, and it would sure be helpful as we navigate through some of the challenges that we're facing right now with a budget that's not close to balanced.
Vivian Nicole, I will have to get back to you on that.
If you get back real soon, because we're making decisions right now, that would be really helpful. I would appreciate it. Certainly by the time we take up final decisions of this budget, so no later than this week, I would say. I'll yield to the council president, but in the next 24 to 48 hours would be helpful and I think necessary for us to make smart decisions. The council is in a very difficult position to make thoughtful reductions because we don't have the operational understanding of exactly what the impacts are going to be, and there really isn't enough time, line item by line item, for you all to explain what those impacts are. This is the rub that we have, and so we need you to help us to understand what those impacts are going to be, so that when and if we have to make difficult decisions, that we're making, what was the chief's term, the least worst choice, that we're making the least worst choice and not the worst choice. And ultimately, we can't do that without better information than what we currently have. So if you could, it's not just for this department, and you're only in control of certain number of departments. I'm looking for it enterprise wide, because ultimately I think that the council really needs to see that. So I just want to request that here. I'll yield to the council president for that, but I think that 3.5% reduction specifically for every single department in county government, and the offsets for the enhancements that apparently was the formal guidance that was given to every single department in county government. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for the question. We have somebody for OMB. Can you please give her a chair? Anybody? There you go. Thank you for doing that.
Veronica Howard from OMB. Just to point out that the 3.5%, all items were provided already to the council, so you already have that information.
Okay, we have the 3.5% reduction from every department, and it's designated that way?
You have every item that they submitted in their submission.
Okay, if you could double check, because I know that we have about 18 or so million dollars in reductions that the county executive has said that were decided. That's like 0.2% of the $8 billion budget submission. 3.5% would be a much bigger number. I'm not familiar with that list in a consolidated way, so if we could follow up and look into that. And specifically, the other thing that I am very interested in is the offsets. Because there's, what I'm hearing from the chief, the guidance was both things, just to make sure I'm understanding and clarifying. One is a 3.5% across the board reduction, and then an offset of new programs and new positions where, it's essentially, if you're adding something, you have to find a reduction within your department or a efficiency that you can find in order to cover the expense.
You should have that. If anything was approved, then the offset was approved as well.
I'm going to ask Mr. Howard to speak on this.
Okay.
Yes,
Looking for more specific than theoretical is what I'm asking.
As part of the OMB's, the county executive's budget development process, OMB in most years asks department to share reductions and things like that as part of their budget submission. Those have historically been considered internal deliberative documents by the executive branch. And so I think we can chat with OMB about whether the executive and the CAO are willing to share those more broadly. I know a lot of those are used as part of the county executive's budget process. some of the submissions, suggestions from departments. So we can circle back with them and then circle back with council.
My understanding was that it's internal. We're hearing it here as the justification. If we're making our decisions on it, that would be very helpful. And so what I am asking for is that it be at least internally deliberative to the council so that we can be aware of that. I think it would be even more helpful if it was available to the public, because ultimately, what was considered but ultimately not accepted is a reasonable thing for us to understand. I mean, everything in the budget presumably was put forward. So understanding what was weighed and ultimately not taken so we understand would be helpful. Thank you.
Great suggestions. We're going to follow up on that one. With that, I don't see anybody else wanting to speak, and we have a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you so much for coming today. We're going to move on to item F. Action on a resolution to approve the memorandum of agreement between the county and the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, fiscal year 2027. Is there a, let's see, wait for people to come forward. They wanted to stretch their legs. So they go back. I'm going to turn this to council staff to speak on this item before we ask for a vote.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam President. This item, just to reiterate, it is a final action item. It's a vote on a resolution to approve the memorandum of agreement between the county and the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association, MCVFRA, for fiscal year 2027. The Public Safety Committee did review did meet and had a work session, reviewed the resolution, and unanimously recommended the approval of the resolution, just with a couple of technical clarifying amendments.
Does the chair of the committee would like to, or I can continue with the council staff? Okay. That's okay. Ms. Wallens, can you please continue?
Yes. So essentially what the resolution does is it sets out each of the provisions of the memorandum of agreement for FY27 that are subject to council approval because they either require a change in regulation or require legislation, or they have required an appropriation or have a fiscal impact. So for FY27, those items include an increase, a 2.5% increase in association funding, an increase in the nominal fee that's received by the volunteer firefighters. There is in the agreement requires a new public safety training academy course, expands access to physical exams more on a par with the career firefighters, as well as cancer screenings. In addition, the county executive agreed under this MOA to submit to the council the legislation that you introduced this morning, Bill 2026. The update that the Public Safety Committee revised the resolution simply to account for the fact that that the executive did submit the required legislation after the resolution was introduced. So that's why we just need to update the resolution to reflect that and the fact that you have introduced the bill. Thank you.
That was very clear. And with that, is there a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the county and the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, fiscal year 2027? Moved by Councilmember Don Lukey, second by Councilmember Andrew Fritzen. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to move on to item G, FY27 County 911 fee. And I'm going to turn it back to the Chair of Public Safety, Chairman Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The county executive sent over on March the 13th a resolution authorizing the county's 911 fee to be increased from $1.47 to $1.93 per telephone subscriber line to fund 911 services. the state has a monthly fee prescriber line of 50 cents. Currently, the county's fee is $1.47 per line. Our state law allows counties to increase this fee to help offset the cost of the 911 service delivery. This fee was increased last year from 75 cents to $1.47 and was the first increase since 2003. The increase in the 911 fee is expected to generate an additional $9.7 million in FY27 to close the projected gap between expenditures and current revenue. Our Emergency Communications Center, also known as the ECC, has gone through significant changes in the past 15 years due to advancement in technology, including the use of wireless phones and an increase of call volume. 911 call centers have been transitioning to next generation 911 technology, which is faster and more reliable and allows for text messaging, photos, and videos. Montgomery County moved to this technology in September 2021. This improved technology requires increased training and personnel needs. The Public Safety Committee unanimously recommended approval as submitted. With your indulgence, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Farag and whoever, or someone from the police department, if they would like, for any further explanation.
You covered every salient point. I just wanted to point out OMB is here too, and we can get more into the actual costs and drivers and fees if you want.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Woljawon is the first one.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Madam President. Appreciate the Public Safety Committee's work. This is actually an area when I wanted to explore if maybe we could have some revenue enhancement. I know we had been in discussion with Ms. Farag and with others. If you look on the packet, which is great, on page 4, it lists out the fees across the state. We are still on the low end. Frederick is $2.75, Allegheny's $2.50. This would be $1.97. I wanted to see the operational impact. If, say, we went up 8 cents to $2.01, for example, and what would that bring in, and how would that be used, and offset costs in the ECC?
Right. I worked with OMB, Mr. Ahmed, yesterday to look at this in a little bit more depth. For each penny that you increase the 911 fee, you'd get approximately $197,000 additional in revenue. For an 8 cent increase, it would be about $1.577 million. The difference in cost, the audit was performed on FY25 costs, and they have to approximate actual costs within the Emergency Communications Center and set the fees appropriately to cover that. That's a state mandate. So they audited FY25 costs. I looked at how FY26 costs have increased, and that was an increase of almost $1.8 million. So I talked to OMB, and we think that there is some wiggle room based on the fact that personnel costs are increasing with compensation increases, and there is unfunded overtime within the Emergency Communications Center, both on the police side and the fire side. So we think that, I think that an 8 cent increase would generate about $1.577 million. That's slightly conservative based on the increase between FY25 and FY26. And the reason I offered a slightly conservative number here is you still have some changes going into effect here. Part of the police budget is to add 25 new telecommunicator positions. That was already cut a little bit by $629,000 in the police department budget, but I think it's still about $1.9 million. Increased costs. Those positions are needed to help replace uniformed firefighters who are currently working in the Emergency Communications Center, who make a lot more money and they get a lot more overtime. The plan is on the executive side, I don't know if fire's still here, but the plan is over the next 90 days or so to move uniformed firefighters out of the ECC, redeploy them back to the field, and use civilian professional staff to do the fire dispatch. Fire dispatch is extraordinarily complex. The civilians have been trained on this, and there still will be sufficient fire oversight at the location. But shifting them out depends on approving the 25 ECC positions. So you will see savings, which I can't quantify at this point, of moving fire out, but you have that slight $1.9 million increase on the police side, adding more civilian positions. So I wanted to keep it conservative. Right. So
this could help offset that and not still put us
Right.
higher than jurisdiction. So I'd like to move that we increase it to $2.01 per the recommendation. If
And-
OMB has any
yes,
comments they'd like to make.
Yeah, Hamza Ahmed, Office of Management and Budget. I would just clarify that if the intent of the council is to take instead of the $2.6 million for the ECC positions and go to the $2 million, it reduces the initial fee that was proposed from $1.93 to $1.91. And then if we are adding additional expenses on top of that, based on what Ms. Faraga said, it would bring it up to $2.01 for the county fee, but the state fee is always $50, so the total
50 cents.
fee would be $2.51. So if you look at that chart on page 4, the fee on the right side of that chart, that is the fee, that is the county fee and the state
Got
fee
it.
of 50
That's
cents
combined.
included.
So you're helping me correct my motion here then. So then what would that mean for what I'm trying to accomplish?
So based on your recommendation of a county fee of $2.01, the total fee would be $2.51.
And 51 cents.
Yes.
Got it, because you're adding the 50. Yeah, you're just clarifying. Still 25 cents below Frederick.
But we don't need that.
I'm clarifying the total fee, the total 911 fee, state and county combined, would be $2.51.
Right.
But
right now it'd be 240 something. Like with the executive proposed 193 for the county side plus 50, right?
Yes. So the
this would
total
be
fee
8 cents more than that.
Yes, that's correct. I think for resolution purposes, and I'll double check with Ms. Rock, I think for resolution purposes, I think we only state the county portion of the fee, and the state just adds that 50 cents.
Okay, so then the motion would be to raise it to 155.
The motion would be to increase the county.
Yeah, the county proportion to $1.55.
No, it would be $2.01.
Okay.
It's going.
I'm
now
sorry.
from-
Yes, because it's 193. Yes, I'm using the old number.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's correct.
The county. So thank you. So the motion would be to increase the county portion to $2.01.
Yes, that's correct.
Got it. Thank you. And I thought that's what I said, but.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Vice President Balcom. I'm going to open up for discussions. You want to start? Go ahead.
Somebody else is in the
Is the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Katz.
Just to clarify, this fee does it only go towards the 911 expenses? It doesn't go to the general fund,
It
is that
goes to the
correct?
general fund.
It goes to the
general fund, but it has to approximate actual costs within the Emergency Communication Center, which is primarily made up of both fire staffing and police staffing, civilian staffing, but there's also a much smaller DGS portion of supporting the facility.
So this fee does go to general fund, and it could be used for things beyond the 911 expense, yes?
So I would clarify that state law indicates that revenues generated from the fee can only be used for 911 related purposes.
Yeah.
And so the revenues go directly to the general fund. However, there's, and I would leave it to finance to elaborate, but those specific revenues can only be used for county 911 program expenditures.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was the question about where the money went to the general fund. However, there is general fund money currently going into the 911 system, and so even though this particular pot of money can only be used for 911, the funds that in the general fund that are currently going to 911 can be used for other things. So it frees up money in the general fund. Wanted to confirm that.
If I'm understanding you correctly, Council Member, what you're saying is that the funds for the 911 program are coming out of the general fund, which is correct. And what we're proposing is if we increase the fee, we gain additional revenue from the state, therefore reducing the burden, so as to speak, on those prior general fund undesignated reserves. That is correct. What I would caveat that with is the revenues generated can only be used according to state law for 911 fees. And so if, for example, expenditures for the 911 program came under what the revenues generated, we can only use those funds for 911 program expenditures.
I appreciate that, and thank you.
Yes, the proposed increase is based on FY25 costs. So obviously FY27, if most of the budget is approved, are going to be more than that. So even with the increased fee, it's probably not going to 100% fund the Emergency Communication Center's real costs.
That was clear, and I'm not going to repeat it because it was very clearly stated. So there's a motion on the table. Those in favor, please raise your hand. And okay, so that's 10. Against 1. It passes. So thank you. So now we have there's no further discussion. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. We have a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee as amended today on the 911 service. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. You wanted to leave ahead of time. I saw you. Yeah, he even danced too. Good call. We're going to move on with item H, Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Again, I'm going to turn it back to Chair Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam President. County Executive recommended budget for Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security is $7,480,372, an increase of 30.7%. 3 items were placed on the reconciliation list. First is $800,000 for the Everbridge Alert System, which we also call Alert Montgomery. The department has identified Alert Montgomery as a top operational need. Next is response equipment for $425,000, which replaces expiring medical supplies throughout the county. Last is $93,274 for a fiscal and administrative position that is currently filled, and grant funding would expire end of FY26. All 3 items were previously federally funded by the Urban Area Security Initiative grant that are now required to be transferred to the general fund. The committee recommends approval of the budget. The county executive also sent over a CIP amendment regarding the Joint Operations Center. $2.439 million was approved by the council earlier this year as an FY26 supplemental appropriation to set up a command and control center in collaboration with the police and fire and rescue to enhance response time on time-critical incidents. The county executive proposed to reduce the scope of this project to $848,000 and implement a phased approach versus the original 90 days implementation. The Public Safety Committee voted 2-1, with Councilmember Mink dissenting, to maintain the original appropriation and scope of this project. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Cummings and Director Hodgkin for any additional information. I think what has happened here, just to be thoroughly confusing, is that we had a 2026 supplemental budget that was sent over by the county executive, and everything was supposed to be taken care of in this year's budget in 90 days, which I think the 90 days was this week or is today.
Sorry, yesterday.
So that didn't happen. So then they've come back and said, well, we were just sort of kidding, so what we're going to do is put this in this year's budget. Anyhow, I'd like to turn over to Ms. Cummings and Director Hodgkin, and I also know that Councilmember Lukey has a thought or two about this as well.
Can you please go ahead?
Thank you, Council President. I guess before we get to the CIP, I just wanted to note with the operating budget, the changes that we see reflected in the department's budget this year are very similar to changes we've seen in the past several years, really reflecting that pullback on federal funding. So this is really just funding to maintain the services that our county is doing. Now to get to the fun part. So for the CIP, I did just want to note an update since the committee conversation. It was noted in the discussion that there were some concerns from the department that the $848,000 that was noted in the executive's CIP adjustments document was maybe not quite enough to make the space functional. There were a number of items that the department can speak to a little more accurately to, but including radio, hardware. I think one of the most critical aspects being hardwiring the internet cable so that all of the services that are running through the Joint Operations Centers, such as Arctic, Drone as First Responder, are not dependent on Wi-Fi as they are currently. So on the cover letter, we did break down what those additional costs to kind of bring the center to functionality would be. And it would bring the CIP total to $1.1 million. And I will rest there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just, for the benefit of the whole, and thank you, Chair Katz, for your overview. But as everyone here is sitting here trying to go, oh, hey, we're trying to find savings in the FY27 budget, I need to really remind everybody, this has nothing to do with the FY27 budget related to the Joint Operations Center. It is solely, hey, we need this supplemental funding, which is supposed to be because something is urgent and necessary and needed. And then when we had the supplemental come over from the county executive's office, it listed an amount that is still not accurate for the work that was supposed to have been completed by yesterday. And it is underway. It's just not done. It needs to be done. And also, it doesn't get us anything in terms of the FY27 budget that we are working on. And so the reason why I voted the way I did in committee was to leave it alone so that the executive branch could sort out getting the remainder of the work done in FY26 that we already appropriated the money for, and do so. And then, any money that is left over, if it does not cost as much as what was originally thought in February, then that would revert back, right? It doesn't go away. But right now, there's no real tangible benefit in terms of cost savings to us of removing that. Or reducing it, as suggested by the county executive in his April memo. It just conflates things and confuses things unnecessarily. And, and I struggle with the fact that the amount certain was given in February. And then 60 days later, that wasn't the right amount. And now you want a different amount. And yet that's not the right amount either. So my recommendation to the body with respect to the Joint Operations Center is to leave it alone. It is also critically important that the remainder of the work that was to be completed with that funding in terms of the functionality, the cabling in particular, to make sure the radio operations are okay in there, because it is in the basement of the Public Safety Headquarters building. There's a lot of concrete, there's a signal issue. And I don't think anyone wants, we've all had to deal with situations where Wi-Fi is not optimal. Do you want your public safety operations functioning off of Wi-Fi, or do you want them hardwired in so that their signals don't drop? And that's all we're asking for, is to leave this alone so that they can proceed with completing the work so that it can be fully operational. Thank you.
So just to clarify, you're saying that you support the committee recommendation as it is?
Yes,
just to
as it is.
clarify,
Mm-hmm.
Is that what's going on? Okay. And I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. I see faces wanting to speak, but I don't see anybody wanting to. So I'm like, I see now, Councilman. Okay. Who's the brave one? All right, Councilmember Wojawon.
Why stop now? So I just want to understand. So the executive, it was a 2-1 vote to revert to the original appropriation. The the scope has remained unchanged. There was additional recommendation requested about the amount of funding that would make it functional. Could you just speak to where are we at today, May 5th, 12:20 p.m.?
Absolutely. And good afternoon, everybody. When the original supplemental came over here in February, I believe that was today or yesterday was the date, we had estimates that were provided by a number of vendors as well as DGS to make the modifications to the space as well as provide the infrastructure for the communications and IT. When it was decided that there were some cost concerns back at the executive side and they were going to withhold that, we decided to be a little more resourceful and we started to look into some of our grants that we could repurpose. So these were grants we already had that we would then obviously reprioritize based on this need that we had across the public safety spectrum. That took a little bit of time to do those reprogramming because we have to go to FEMA, we have to go to the actual granting agency to receive approval for a change in scope from what the original grant was allocated for. We received that, we invested, when all was said and done, $1.144 million in grant funds. And that purchased our video wall, which is being installed this week. That purchased all of the computer hardware that was down there. That purchased the first inject of radios that we're using. So it was enough to get us functional. Functional in this sense is kind of open to interpretation because as Councilmember Lukey said, we do have issues with the connectivity and the reliability there. Mainly because we're on Wi-Fi at this point. We do need the hard wires in there. We need the hard wires not only for the computers, but we also need to have actual phones down there. We're using cell phones down there. And we need the hard wires that will connect us to our radios. So right now we're using portable handheld radios. There's two problems with the handheld radios. One is they're not meant to be used indoors primarily, especially in a basement area. So they have a limited transmission power. The way we deal with that in buildings, and this is the same way we do in schools and large office buildings, is we have what's called a BDA, which is a bidirectional amplifier. The bidirectional amplifier is meant to receive and transmit at a higher power. It will do that on both incoming and outgoing. However, that's meant for basically one radio channel because it thinks you're working one incident in that particular building. We're obviously operating on a wide swath of talk groups, our channels, because we're operating the entire public safety spectrum from that spot. So we're overloading the bidirectional amplifier, and that results in us losing transmissions and also losing calls that we're receiving in. That's the receiving in is particularly concerning because we don't even know we're missing them. You have no indication that you're not receiving a call in. We have lost some connectivity through Wi-Fi. And then we've obviously have concerns about the video feeds and the drones that go through there. So our answer to this is that we need the cabling that will get us the radio infrastructure, put antennas on the roof, and then provide us the hardwire infrastructure that connects us to the network so we're not relying on Wi-Fi.
And that's what this extra funding would be for?
So that's what gets us down to...
What number is that?
That's the one...
Sounds like you're semi-functional now.
Yeah, so that gets us to the 1.118, I believe, is in your...
The 1.1.
That's in the packet. Am I correct? That was the number that was in there?
Former emergency manager, Dr. Stoddard.
Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. So the total appropriation was $2.4 million. 1.2 of that was cash. 1.2 of that was GEO bond. We think that the GEO bond would be sufficient to cover, which frees up 1.2 million in cash. And as Dr. Hodgson alluded to, we've already invested using grants of 1.1 and change that would have covered much of the resources that we would use the 1.2 for. And so, I think it was one of those things where because and I want to be clear, the county executive, when we originally set this over, we hadn't evaluated the operating budget implications of the JOC at that point, which are going to be over time more significant. And I think he was unprepared to move forward with some of the staffing requirements of the JOC fully, and so he felt like we could slow down the operationalization. I do wholly agree with Councilmember Lukey that we cannot slow down the necessary core infrastructure that we have to put in place in the room to make it functional even for the police department, which is the principal user at this point. Right. And so those investments are moving forward, as Director Hodgson alluded to, and then we'll, we're part-time using OEMHS and fire rescue staff to cover certain shifts when available there, and we're already seeing operational benefits when they are there, but over time, the room is going to become more necessary, and we will almost assuredly be coming back for additional investment in the future. But given the short time, given the time frame, the pressures that we're under right now, we think the 1.2 that's in GO bonds, leaving that alone would be fine, and repurposing the 1.2 that was cash is appropriate.
And is that what did the committee decide? Was that the committee decision? No, right? That was a different from what it was 2-1 to do that, or to not
2-1 to leave it alone, which is leave the 2.4.
Right, and then delete what you just stated. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what the committee.
The committee diverged from what I just.
That's what I thought. It's different. Okay, so to align the committee with your recommendation.
What I think the county, not my recommendation. The county executive's recommendation is to reduce from the 2.4 to 1.2 of GO bonds and remove the cash from the supplemental appropriation.
And that's the cash is from this year's budget?
It's from the FY26 budget, correct?
Yeah, so, okay, because there was some I had heard that there was no savings to be had, but I think there are savings to be had, it sounds like, in this year's budget,
Releasing, Derek Harrigan, Office of Management and Budget, Councilmember Jawando, so releasing GO bond and recordation tax in the current year makes more money for FY27, for building the FY27 budget.
Right.
So there are savings.
Okay. I'll hold for now. I want to hear from.
Is that, I'm confused right now. Sorry. Is the committee recommendation, which was 2-1, what it's not? So it's not the status quo. So it's not so what is is the recommendation now by any member of the Public Safety Committee based on what we just heard? That's what I need to find out. So let me turn it to Council Member Kristen Mink.
Okay, thank you. Oh my goodness, this has been a tricky situation. Okay, so to be clear, there are some savings to be found in the FY27 budget. Is that correct? Or savings is maybe not the right word.
That's not so. Again, releasing the GO bond. Mm-hmm. So the original appropriation, 2.4 million. If the Office of Emergency Management is saying 1.2 is sufficient to make the PSJOC operational, the additional 1.2 million that was originally programmed is then released and is available for the FY27 budget.
Can I offer a clarification?
Please.
Okay. Veronica Hawa from the Office of Management and Budget. So the last proposal, the supplemental was for $2.4 million, 1.2 in general obligation bonds and 1.2 in recordation tax premium, which is a cash equivalent. The proposal that is now on the table is to leave the 1.2 general obligation bonds in the project so it can be used towards the hard wiring and all of the other things that are needed in support of the grant funding that has been already invested, and release or do not use the 1.2 in recordation tax premium so it can be, if it is not used, then it is available in FY27 to support the operating budget because it is a cash equivalent.
I'd like to move that.
That clarifies, and we have a motion by Councilmember Wojawando.
Okay, I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Kristen Mink. Councilmember Kate Stewart is on the queue. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I want to make sure. No, please don't. All right. So the recommendation is to keep the GO bonds, but the 1.2 in the recordation, the cash that we would be putting back, is one-time money. Yes.
Yeah, it is one time. It is 1.2 that we have available in recordation tax. Yeah.
Right, but that is, so I want to be really careful when we talk about putting money back into the operating budget. And I I'm not sure I'm going to support this because if we are we keeping that money? Could we keep that money in the CIP? Why don't we, if I could do a friendly amendment and say, we can keep the 1.2 since it's already in the GO bonds, but the other 1.2 in cash, not in the operating because it's one-time money, to put it in the CIP.
Yes, like it is, I'm sorry if I am.
It is.
All right.
No, please.
No, it just, as long as that's, I accept that amendment. I think that's fine. Yeah.
Were you saying
But
current?
you were just saying.
We can keep it in the CIP and use it in the future in the CIP, or the usage could be determined by council staff if they decide to use it in the operating by your decision.
She's suggesting to keep it in CIP. I'd be good either way, but I'm accepting the friendly amendment to keep it in CIP. We have work to do both places.
Right, exactly. And so that's why I'm really conscious of one-time money going to one-time projects, and the best way for us to do that is to keep that money in the CIP. Yeah. Thank you.
And it's already there. Okay. That was clear. We have but I have the chair.
I just have one question that might not be clear. When will this work actually be done?
So I'll go back to our original statement, which is when the money is made available to us.
The money was made available to you.
Well, when it is made available for OMHS to spend.
Okay.
So when it is transferred into our account, and OMB can talk about the process that requires. I would say well within 90 days. We are well positioned.
We're back to 90 days.
Yes, and really the vendors are ready to work. There's just some parts that need to be ordered. But I would expect this to be significantly less than 90 days. I'm just giving us a little bit of breathing room there.
Right. So if this passes, then we would have you all functional, actually doing this within the 90 days, or
Absolutely.
in 90 days.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
But those are 90 additional days.
Yeah, 90
Yeah.
additional. Yeah.
Because we already had 90 days.
Yeah,
They
no,
already
no,
happened.
That's
we
what he's saying.
we can't go in reverse.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. It's all clear. All those in favor, place your hand. It passed unanimously. Thank you so much. With that, we have a committee recommendation that was just amended. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It passed unanimously. Thank you so much for coming today. We're gonna move on. We have only 2 more things, guys. We can make it. Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, please come forward. Turning it back to Chairman Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The county executive recommended increase of $4,016,019, or 4.21% increase. This budget includes reductions, including abolishing 7 positions in pretrial services and pre-release and reentry services, as well as elimination of some one-time items. 3 items are placed on the reconciliation list: a dedicated K-9 unit for contraband detection and facility security at $182,609, funding adjustment for full-time instructors or their education programs of $47,422, and a replacement of obsolete TASER units, $18,000. This funding would support purchase of 4 new TASERs. Due to the age of the TASERs, they no longer are serviceable by the manufacturer. The Public Safety Committee recommended approval of the budget as submitted. I'd now like to turn to Ms. Farag and Director Stevenson for any additional information.
I have nothing to add from the budget side, so I'll turn it over to Director Stevenson.
Sure. Good afternoon. Good to see everyone. I just want to thank Council President Fanny Gonzalez. Thank you, Vice President Balcom, and County Council members today. This is my team here today. I just want to quickly introduce them. Stephen Murphy is Chief of Medical and Behavioral Health, followed by Janet Quirk, who is the Section Chief of our IT side. Chief Willie Morales, who's in charge of our Management Division Services. To my right is Ivan Downing, who is the Division Chief of Community Corrections. And I want to thank you. This is my team today here. I'm hope to answer any questions on how we operationalize our budget and any questions that you have. I did want to highlight a couple notes of corrections and what we some things that are highlighted this year that are very important to what we're trying to accomplish, and that is staffing vacancies. In public safety environments, we all know that trying to fill positions is very, very difficult. Currently, right now, and I can say over years of looking at culture, looking at change, looking at leadership and training, we're at a 4.7% vacancy rate, and that is a true vacancy rate for our correctional officers. We have immersed our culture and staff in developing our first ever state training academy inside our detention services up at Clarksburg, which does state training that applies to the culture of Montgomery County, in addition to doing longer crisis intervention training for those that we care for in our custody. Additionally, we do evidence-based programming in making sure that we have residents, defendants, incarcerated individuals that are released from our custody in better shape than what they come in. And so we highlight our technology we've used in tablets that can provide educational, legal, substance abuse, mental health services inside our pods so they can access healthcare more efficiently. And one of the last things I just wanted to note is efficiency. I am a fiscal steward of Montgomery County. I am very cautious of how we look at the efficiencies with each sides of our divisions, and I've done a lot of alignment with my team to make sure we are tasking our work to where it makes sense and it's right and it fits. And so we have realigned our pretrial services. We're looking future to pre-release services and looking at efficiencies where we can do more with less impact and less requirement of asking for things. And so with that, I just wanted to say, I just want to thank for the continued support of our department and what we do in our operations. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all your work and for bringing your entire team here. I don't see anybody having any questions. You do? Okay. Councilmember Stewart.
Oh, I was reading your obit again, because I do want to remark, I wanted to remind myself, just thank you to all of you for the dedication and work. And reading the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice remarks, how difficult it can be for the staff because of the work time that you all are not sitting at computers to do online testing, but having a core team moving that forward, just wanted to commend you on that. And I think you all were here before when I spoke to the police department. One of the things I'm really trying to think of, what do we need this year? How do we fit this all together? I guess one question I had was on the K-9 unit. I understand from the discussion that that is less expensive than doing other things, but just sort of fitting it into your overall work and this budget this year.
Contraband and drugs inside correctionals, whether it's local, state, or federal jurisdictions, is a growing problem we all talk about. We all talk about it locally and nationally at our conferences. We are looking at something where we could do as low cost as possible that isn't fortifying one entry point, but looking at a program that can protect all three facilities. We're not just looking at one jail. We're looking at both jails plus a pre-release center that have opportunities to bring in drugs and contraband at any point in time. We were trying to look at a program where we didn't have to ask for additional staff. It was in lieu of a larger piece of equipment that would be a pallet scanner at the tune of almost $500,000, which would only fortify one area. And as we know, with some of our clientele, is they look for every different point to find a new way to get something in. And so the K-9 officer is one that you find typically in large metropolitan jails. We have a large ADP just because of a larger county, and so the creativity is high, and we've noticed that, and we're seeing that in trends, and we do have some data that shows that is just it's a constant cat and mouse fight. But most importantly, it's not just about canines, it's also about protecting our reentry and our workforce development programs inside our jail. When you find a substance and or contraband, it can often shut down your operations during daytime hours in which we utilize educators from MCPS. It could be Montgomery College instructors, it could be crisis intervention instructors, or our cognitive behavioral training programs. And so a little bit of something that is found can have profound effects and shut us down. In other words, take long to be able to acquiesce resources to come in to be able to do that kind of work. And so anyways, those are some of the reasons behind our request.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Cindy Katz.
Thank you very much. Candidly, and I appreciate the question, but candidly, you probably should have had this before. Over the years, we've chatted about it, and I know it's always been, budgetary, et cetera. But to have one concern, the dogs many times stop people from even thinking about doing it, rather than just necessarily catching something. So I certainly am in favor of the canine unit. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't see anybody else wanting to have any questions. So with that, we have a committee recommendation from the Public Safety on the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Any passed unanimously? We're gonna go to our last item. Thank you so much for coming today. And the last one for this morning is the Office of the County Attorney. And for that one, I'm gonna turn it to Chair Stewart.
Great, thank you very much. This should be a quick item for the Office of the County Attorney. The GO Committee recommended 3-0 for approval of the FY27 operating budget. There is only really one item. This is pretty much the same service budget. There was an AI document review tool that is on the reconciliation list for $23,172. And I think our county attorney can describe best what this tool would do for their office, and that is all.
Thank you for that report. If council staff or the county attorney, nothing to add.
I think it's good afternoon.
Yes.
President Fanny Gonzalez, Vice President Balcom, the rest of the council members, thank you for the opportunity to appear today. I'm John Markovs. I'm your county attorney. We've got one item on the reconciliation list. It's the Microsoft Azure AI document review tool, which is actually going to be a chargeback to TEBS. I think you know that TEBS charges the departments. This makes us very much like Renaissance Italy with principalities and arrangements between all of the city-states. That $23,172 represents using AI to go through, in a static system, a closed loop, all of the county attorney documents. We have decades of paper opinions and resources that have been scanned. We don't have the person power to possibly put them all into Word directories. So one of the concepts that came up between the county attorney's office and TEBS was to use an AI tool in a static closed loop to be able to build form files and opinion files for the county attorney's office. And so it is an annual expense, apparently, to maintain that closed loop system of data, and would like to have that in the county attorney's office. I know these are tough times and we're looking for every dollar, but it is a small amount and it will increase the efficiency in my office, which we have really tried to do. You'll note our operating costs are down. We're almost all people and technology, and I'm using technology in lots of different ways to make the office more efficient, more equitable, to fulfill the mission of the council and the executive, and to represent the residents of Montgomery County and protect them. As an aside, just to give you an example, the county attorney's office defends about $1 billion worth of claims a year. It's hundreds of millions to over $1 billion in the addendum clause. We do affirmative litigation, PFAS litigation. I went after the Meta, the opioid settlement. We've recovered about $68 million over the next 10 years from the opioid settlement. Remember, we didn't get any money in the tobacco settlement because you had to be in it to win it. And so we actually filed suit against every opioid manufacturer. I'm waiting on the Sackler and the Purdue Pharma resolution to get the final tally and give you a better number. But right now we're in excess of $68 million we're going to collect, and we've collected quite a few million already on the front end. And then the other thing that we do is proactive litigation, including I am involved in 28 cases against the Trump administration right now for attacks on our residents, whether it be birthright, whether it be women's rights, reproductive rights, all kinds of different executive orders that we're trying to damage our attempts at getting grants and keeping grants to meet the needs of our residents. So again, it's a small item on the list. and I would ask that you approve it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Markov. You have been such an amazing partner for this council. I know every time I call you, you answer the phone, and besides that, you give very direct advice. And I think you're one of our superpowers here in Montgomery County, and I appreciate you very much and your team, and I mean it very well.
Thank you very much.
With that, colleagues, we have a recommendation by the CAL committee. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And it passed unanimously. We're supposed to start at 1 p.m. for the afternoon session. I'm gonna move it to 1:10 when we're gonna start the first proclamation. So we have half an hour, less actually. So 1:10, okay? Thank you so much for coming. And we are gonna take a recess, right?